We have a theme, 2023 TVs. We're talking about the good ones, well, actually, even the bad ones. Up to a certain
Okay.
price point, 2023 TV deals are really good up to a
Yep.
certain level, right? Even the flagship. And a lot of people are asking, and because I'm getting a lot of these questions, hey, should I wait for 2024? Should I wait for 2024? And it's not, should you wait for 2024 TVs? It's, should you wait for a specific 2024 feature, which I talked about in the last video.
Yep.
But before we go there, I have to show this with you guys real quick because I thought this is very interesting. I'm going to put it up real quick right now. Okay, so we're looking at the 98-inch and
Yeah, I
100-inch
saw this.
TVs available, right? So you got the S5 1999, but get this, the 100-inch is already sold out. The Hisense, it was available just on Sunday, right? I told everyone, hey guys, this is a good deal, get it. It's gone,
Yeah,
right?
take your post down. You're like, it's out of
Yeah,
date.
but that's
Yeah.
not the only one. The 98-inch Sony is 8,000. It's all gone, because
Yep.
people want the Sony and they're willing to pay for the Sony. And to be fair, I'm doing a build for my friend. We got the 98-inch Sony as well because he wants it to be a keeper. He's not like a super enthusiast who wants the best. He just watches sports. I thought for him the Sony would be fine, and he's okay.
Did you go X90L with him?
Yes,
That's your friend?
X90L.
Gotcha. Okay.
98. I mean, got the full Sony package. I got the latest AVR. I matched it all up to golden ear speakers, right? And SVS subwoofer. So he just wanted a very basic but good system. And he's always been a Sony guy. So he's comfortable with the brand, which we saw. He's like, I don't know these new brands. I go, you know what? If you're willing to pay a few thousand, he goes, I am. I just don't want to deal with a new brand and have the wife yell at me. So,
Yep.
but look, the U8, the 100-inch U8 is still not available. And at the end of the day, my conclusion is people know a good deal when they see it. Now, obviously, I'm sure maybe the S5, there's a lot more of them out there, so it's still available. Or people bought it within 60 days, they're swapping to this one. Because this is a 2024 model. And I told everyone I felt the S5 was overpriced at $3,000. But seeing this Hisense with full array local dimming at $2,000, you're beginning to wonder maybe the S5, could it be a little overpriced at 2,000?
Yeah. So what I love about this FOMO, because I saw some cool comments that said, your name should not be Stop the FOMO, it should be Start the FOMO. But what we have happening now, everybody, is this dicey moment where if you do your research and you know specifically what you want, and you've heard what's announced, though FOMO, a lot of the lineups were very vague this year.
Mhm.
With other than like Samsung was like, hey, we have these, maybe. Sony didn't show it yet, but let me rewind it. Things like this make me a little bit nervous because that TV, we know the TCL S5 is a massive jump this year. The processor, it's much better than it was. That TV is still what it was when it was $3,000. So a lot of people are now jumping at these because of the price. But remember, that TV is still what was reviewed back when it was. So I think it's, you want to jump at them, but at the same time, remember, they didn't get better because the price went down.
Right.
So you have to keep in mind what you're buying. Some of these TVs are big, they're cheap, and the quality is like Getty G Man has a UAK. So what he has is he's at a 100-inch flagship though.
Yes.
So he didn't grab the U
for 3,000. It is so worth 1,000 more than this. And I love the price separation though. It makes sense, right? 2,000 gets you full array local dimming. 3,000 gets you more full array local dimming plus mini LED.
Yep.
It makes sense. TCL is still pricing it all over the place. I mean, $6,000 for the 98-inch, which is more similar to the U8K, but maybe $1,000, $2,000-$3,000 more. And I'd like to address Jepson's question. Is 100-inch Hisense U76 good? So if it turns on and it delivers, because I have to be honest.
Is there an image on the screen? Yeah, you're good then.
So let's start. It's 100 inches. It is not going to compete with the specular highlights, even with the U7K.
Yeah.
Okay, so the U7K, the Q7, those are made for 65-inch and probably slightly better, but at 100-inch size, you're going to have less dimming zones per inch compared to the U7 K last year, and definitely compared to the U7N this year, right?
Yeah.
But at 100 inches, you're getting that size immersion. It looks good for a 100-inch TV in terms of you're going to get the brightness you need. The image quality is good enough. So if you think a Samsung Crystal series is good enough, this is better than the Crystal series. So
Yeah.
I think that's what we're talking about. So is the U76 good? I'd say it's better than the Crystal series because it's got full array local dimming. Crystal series from Samsung does it. I recommend that all the time as a great SDR starter TV. So, but you're not getting this for HDR impact. You're getting this to watch sports, news, just regular streaming. Now, if you want a little bit better, you go to the 100-inch U8 if it's ever coming back. I'm afraid it's sold out, and they're going to bring in right the 2024 model. So wait, Jepson, if you want something better, because 2000, it is what it is. It's expensive, but that's still, I would say, mid-tier. I mean, isn't it crazy that we're saying at 100 inches you're at mid-tier now? Because I know at a lower tier it's under 2000.
Well, and I mean, again, think about what's expensive. Your phone costs that much. So, but there is, and I stress this to you guys, and I say it with all the love in my heart, you get what you pay for. Please keep in mind, you are buying a big, cheap TV. And that's where I think, and FOMO is saying like, yeah, I mean, for what you're going to watch it for. I remember when the Sony 880Ks or those 880s, well, they don't have any local dimming. It's okay though. And you're like, yeah, but local dimming's really important. Yeah, but if the TV's 100 inches, you're not going to notice. You are going to notice that there isn't any contrast ratio. Or if you're watching anything with black bars, they're going to be purple. So what I'm trying to say is size is great, but there's a point where, and someone said in one of our videos, FOMO, all you have is just a large, crappy TV. So there is a fine line between an ugly image is uglier at 100 inches. So we have to still make sure we don't chase every little one that's out there and be like, well, this one's, let's get this one. So.
Absolutely fair. And Jetty wants to remind us, he actually got his 100-inch U8 for $2,500 because
he's still making money on it.
I think he originally got it when it was like between $4,000 and $5,000, and then there was a deal price adjustment at Best Buy. So he kept on price adjusting, watching for my post saying, hey, it's like $3,000. And he actually went and Best Buy actually gave him another discount. He's got a $2,500. So if this is the future pricing, and I don't think it's unusual, in the next 2 years, the quality of the U8 at 100 inches is going to be $2,500. I mean, just think about that. That just blows me away.
So, but going back to what I'm trying to say, though, is because the price is a certain price, FOMO, everybody's forgetting that DSE is a problem. Everybody's forgetting that screen uniformity issues at 85 and at 75 are an issue. At 100-inch, the DSE is the size of your face. Local dimming is more important. That's I'm just trying to say is keep in mind that quality, we're like, people say, well, it's better than a projector. Well, yes, in contrast ratio, maybe not at that price point. It won't be. Yeah. And there's no screen uniformity on a projector, at least unless the screen has an issue. So it's not as simple as, hey, I was going to buy a NZ8 for 30 grand, but instead I'll buy some eggs, get my tires changed, and buy this TV for $500. I mean, and a 100-inch TV is your TV for life. You're not giving that to FOMO's mom. She's not going to want it.
Like, what?
Look at Getty Brian party pooper. I'm just saying, because what's going to happen, G-Man, is they're going to end up in my comments going, Bri, the screen uniformity on this thing. I'm like, yeah, it's just twice the size of your head now. That dead pixel's the size of a basketball.
That's okay. That is true. Saying. That is true. And this is why I said when he asked, is it a good TV? It's good for a 100-inch or a 98, but you got to be relative to what you're getting. But back to kind of Joel Acevedo is pulling us back to the topic. Get a 2024 TV like the LG G4 or the king of TVs for 2023, the Sony A95L. So let's look at pricing real quick, right? So what I wanted to do was to share with you this.
G4, baby. Gotta go for that G4.
Okay, so we don't have the G4 pricing yet, but this is the G3 pricing at launch.
Smart.
And I expect the G4 to be similar. So let's say G3 right here, right? 77-inch, 4,500, 65-inch, 3,300. Okay, so that's where things are. Let me look up the Sony A95L right now, see where they're at. I don't expect a huge discount, but you never know. Okay, so 65 inches, 3,300. And yeah, so the 77 inch is not available. So let's just talk 65 inch because 77 inch has been sold out since Christmas or Black Friday.
And that's not
3,500.
good
Yes.
as far as wanting a price drop.
So the this at launch, assuming the G4 is going to be similar, the A95L is going to still be more expensive or at best the same at launch during the G4. So this is a good question. You're not saving money by getting the A95L. The question is performance, dollar to dollar. Which is the better TV for you, Joel? So if you're watching normal content, bright room, bright TV, you want bright sports, you're watching hockey, you don't want it to dim, the G3 was a better TV than the A95L for that content, for sure. And the G4 I expect to be even brighter and perfect for that content, but the A95L, critical watching had better luminance, better, and Dolby Vision on both of them, there are issues. So forget Dolby Vision, right? It's not something that I would decide for either one. Now, the G3 and the G4 has better OS, operating system. The web OS is more stable. Sony is still working through its MediaTek chipset and Google TV, and they need to put out some firmware to get that stable. So right now, for just quality of life, I would choose the G4 because you're not saving money, just waiting. Brian, your thoughts?
So the G4, for you guys wanting to make that jump, as we talked about, what features are you chasing? And a lot of TVs aren't going to be very different. The G4 will be very different. It is going to have a new processor. You're going to have kind of an XR clear aspect to it. It will be a good deal brighter. It will have a stand. Those things are
the
worth
65
waiting
inch
for.
will have a stand. Yes.
And the A95L, as good as it is not going to get any better than it is. So for me, the G4 is definitely worth waiting for, because the A95L is still, considered a 2024 TV, and they're working their bugs out. But I think the G4 is going to be an absolute beast. I would wait for it. But again, when you're talking about, look, Dex has a great comment. There's no huge jump in performance between 2023 TVs and 2024. Yes and no. 900C, 900D, massive jump. G4, G3, massive jump, theoretically. So other TVs, right, 90C and 90D, no.
Can I jump in the massive jump that, this is not specs, the massive jump that many of us LG enthusiasts, I including myself as an enthusiast, right?
I hope
the
so.
G4 is using a new production line to address their uniformity issues that have been a problem since, I believe, the C2, G2, C3, G3, ever since they moved to this EOEX processing or production, branding has gotten worse. Now, vertical banding has always been a slight issue with just all these WOLEDs from LG Display, and that applies to Sony, WOLED sources from LG Display. But this year, with the G4, apparently they've addressed it. Now, they say that every year. Oh, no, we made it better. But they're actually saying they've done something different. So we'll see. But let's just say for the sake of argument, that alone makes the G4 significantly better because my G2 and G3, I'm very unhappy with the vertical banding issues. And calibrators like both Dwayne Davis and Classy, they were told it was slightly better last year. It was not. They calibrated a bunch of these, saw issues across the board. Now, the 77-inch size is still slightly better than the 65, which is terrible. And the 83 is just horrible.
Which makes no sense, by the way. But what's funny is, again, if you think that's bad in regular content, in gaming, games like Little Nightmares, games that have that gray screen, it's unwatchable. You have to then go in and drop that black, drop the black level in the game modes, which also crushes the blacks. So C8, C9 crush blacks. That's why you couldn't see it. Now, again, the QD OLEDs don't have it. So it's a big, big difference, I think. If it works.
Yeah, and so with the A95L, you'd be able to avoid the uniformity issue. But another thing to consider also, Joel, is if you need a 77-inch, you may not get it on the A95L. We still don't have it in inventory, in stock. I mean, I think I'll have to ask Robert if he can get it now, but I know nowhere else can you source a 77-inch. Now, if he has it in inventory, but I don't know if he even has any more 77 inches left. So at the end of the day, if you need a 77-inch, your only choice may be the G4 or the S95D with the matte screen. Now, blockchains,
Please go back and watch. Please go watch that video. That
we
is
beat
a
it
great
to
video.
death. So on Brian's channel, our last video, we just sat there and we talked it out about the importance or the lack of importance, depending on who you are, of the flagship S95D from Samsung. They introduced for the first time ever this very aggressive matte screen anti-reflection. Brian thought it's a big loser. I thought it's a big winner for sales. Neither of us would get it, but we think, well, Brian may
Neither
even
one
think,
of us want it, but hey, we're for and against.
hey.
Would you buy it? Oh, hell no.
Now, this is a great comment, question, blockchain about reliability. I don't know how old this Consumer Reports article is, because the last time I looked at it was back in 2019, 2020. So if this is a recent one, I'll dive into it. I do have membership to Consumer Reports, so let me know, blockchain, if this is a recent one. But based on the last one in 2019, there was definitely a connection between how much you pay and the long-term reliability. And specifically, LG, Sony, Samsung, if you paid more for those TVs, their reliability was better. If you paid under $1,000, the TCL had better reliability. The TCL at, let's say, $600-700, the most reliable brand at budget. Vizio, terrible across the board, no matter how much you paid. As a matter of fact, it's an insult when you bought a P Quantum X, how terrible it was. It was the only brand to not deliver better quality at a higher price. But generally speaking, the more you pay, the better the reliability. But recently, and this is something that some Sony owners have complained of, they're seeing that flashing red death we talked about. This is on their flagship A95L. Nothing to do with the panel. QD OLED is fine, but it's whatever they're using on their T-Con or whatever it is, right? That people are trying to figure it out in the owners forum. That's quite disappointing for the Sony flagship owners, that maybe it was spec'd with a slightly budget hardware. So it's really hard to read into this, blockchain samurai, because if you're going after the numbers, let's say statistically speaking, 10,000 consumers, and many of them say Sony is the best, but not all their TVs will pass quality control, and you end up with it because even though it is for sale, technically it shouldn't have passed, you end up being the 5% that hate Sony. And so that applies to all the brands. It's
out there.
How, what is their tolerance for failure, right?
And you say Samsung is the worst. Why? Because they sell the most TVs.
They sell the most.
So we all get hit. Like, they all suck. You're like, well, they do sell 5 times more than everybody else. You're like, but so our little slice of it is a lot. But yeah. And remember, we said, FOMO, you took the A95L out of the oven, baby, before it was fully done. I think it's still not fully done. I think they still have work to do on it. And
definitely.
They're not releasing another one, I don't think so. They have time.
And is that my text thing keep on popping up? Man,
I gotta turn off this. My ceiling fan just turned on. Hold on one second.
Yeah, because I hate that text ringer thing. I apologize, guys, but let me see. Well, hopefully people stop texting me. Terrible. Okay, so that was a good point, blockchain samurai. I really like that point. But at the end of the day, I tell everyone the same thing. If you're paying more than a certain price, definitely get the extended warranty. You just got to get the extended warranty. Otherwise, you're going to be in pain. And we got another super chat here. Thank you, Mac, for the super chat. Hey, fellas, recently broke my A90J moving. Oh, man.
Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry. That's a new TV. It's a beautiful TV, too.
It is. It is. And turn off. I'm turning off all my notifications. This is just terrible. Maybe it's just annoying me. I'm like, I can't stand these notifications. Okay.
You're hearing voices now. You're like, what is going on? Am I the only one hearing that? Do you 200? Wait, 300. 242 people hear that? It's just me.
Would A95L be a nice upgrade? So if you've got a 77-inch A90J, you can't replace it with a.
There wasn't one. It was only 83-inch.
The A90J?
There wasn't a 77-inch A90J.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Okay, so
remember, it was like, hey, either $8,000 or bust, and then the A80J was 77-inch.
Okay, so
which made no sense, by the way.
65-inch, 55-inch A90J. You have a 55, 65 waiting for you in the A95L. 83-inch A90J, you got nothing. So you might as well get the G4 with MLA and super bright, super awesome, right? Because at the time the A90J was compared to I'd say the G1, right?
Yeah,
G1 was behind.
C1, G1.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. The G4 has definitely caught up to the A90J. I feel very comfortable recommending a G4 in lieu of the A95L. If you're going to get it calibrated anyway, they're going to look very similar, if not identical, if you're watching normal content, streaming, whatever, right? If you're watching more critical content and you're very attuned to how the A90J, even that, I can't make the argument. I think you'd be fine with the S90C, S95C, or the G3, G4. It gives you more option in terms of pricing, sizes. What do you think, Brian?
It's so funny. We're like, it all depends on when you tune into us. If you were
I
here like a
know.
month ago, we're like A95L, baby. Now FOMO's like, do you want to know if I want an A95L? Actually, you know what's good? 100-inch U8K.
No, I forgot to mention that.
He's like, it's actually 65 inches. I think the A95L is a huge upgrade. But then again, I have the A80L, which is basically an A90J. It all depends on how much you liked the A90J. If you loved it, I would stay with Sony, get either an A80L or go with the A95L, because Samsung is a step back in terms of upscaling. Even the A90J was better, I think, than current Samsungs in some ways. In the operating system. So I would probably go right to the A95L because to me it's a big jump. So that would be me. I think the other ones are just too different. If you didn't like the A90J, then I would definitely go LG. But I would go with the A95. I think it's a huge upgrade, and if you really like them, you'd still like it.
Yep. But if the A95L is a bit rich for your blood, or you need an 83-inch size, you got the G3, G4 there for you as well. I just opening up your options, Mac, for sure.
Yeah, and the G3 at 83 is going to be such a hard sell now that the G4 actually has MLA. So
Yeah.
hey, Jen.
I love speculation. So let's just hit the speculation. Bullman, I have to bring this up. I've read some speculation on the internet. This is the ABS forums,
Don't go
right?
in there.
On the internet that the A95L will be discontinued quick. Get it now. Guessing not having a 77-inch is fueling speculation. I'm assuming that's very untrue. So when we speculate about what TV makers are doing, the truth is we don't know what they're doing. It could be true. It could be not true. It could be pure coincidence that the speculation happens to be true. And somebody's like, what the hell? How did we leak that? Or it could be complete speculation because, well, they're just speculating, right? I really don't know. And for sure, when we spoke to the team at Sony, they refused to give us any indication of what's happening in 2024.
And we stare right into their eyes. Like, you should see FOMO. When FOMO was talking to Chirag about at the shootout about the 83-inch QD OLED, FOMO threw out some math, and Chirag's like, how did you hear that? And FOMO looks right into his eyes like, is he blinking? Is he blinking? So we stare at both Sony, Samsung, everybody. We look in their eyes, and they all look dead eyes right at you. So we have no idea. But look, it's logical to do both. The A95L released so late in the year that if they release another one, what's the big deal? They'll release it next October. Mm-hmm. It makes sense. It's still a year apart.
Or Brian, stop thinking about this. The X95K, they re-released it last year as the X93L. Literally the same TV with better firmware. Yeah. Hey, I will take the A95L with better firmware, call it the A95N, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Same TV.
Yeah, and they've always said, hey, look, we never promised that the Master Series was a badge that would last 2 years. It did in some cases. We did have it was the A8G and the A8F were back-to-back 6 months apart. I can't see that happening with the A95L because it has all the 2024 OS signatures. It has the chip. It would seem redundant to release another one, but they may. I don't think the lack of 77 is because they're discontinuing it. It does highlight another part of this, though, FOMO, as we've talked about. Waiting to buy things, as you've illustrated with the TCL and the Hisense, the inventory on everything is low.
Yeah.
So these companies, this whole thing about us waiting till next year, we're not even into the TV year yet, and these things are already gone. Or if you remember, the 950H and the 90J, we're like, nah, man, buy one of those in 2 years. That is not happening anymore. Even the junky ones at the lower end, they're only making so many, right? So FOMO, they're probably really gearing down their manufacturing. So they may have underestimated the A95L in terms of its releasing and sales.
I think you just nailed the question. Getty G-Man is asking, thank you for the super chat, Getty. 77-inch A95L is limited quantity release. If yes, why? I think Brian just nailed it, which is, so if you're regional sales director, VP of sales in North America, you tell Sony Japan, hey, this is how many I think is going to sell. And you live and die by that quote.
Oh, yes.
Better to under predict than over predict, because you've over predict and then they got a discount and put out subsidies and whatever. Man, you're not long for that job. So especially a premium 77-inch premium.
Yeah. Well, and your dealers lose. So if your dealer says, hey, I'll buy 15 of these, and they keep them in stock, and then they drop
no one
the
buys
price,
it. Mm-hmm.
And then they drop it, they take a loss. So that's why you don't see even big retailers keeping things in stock anymore. It used to be, that's why I like Costco, because Costco, you're like, okay, here it is. I'll put it in my car. Best Buy doesn't really have a lot of the big TVs on the floor anymore. Why? Well, they don't want to have them purchased. They'll buy them just like Robert does or everyone else, because if they get stuck with them, like you look at the 8K TVs for years, FOMO, they would start off at like 10 grand, then be 5 grand. Mm-hmm. Now they're like, you know what? Let's start them off at 9 grand, and then at 8 grand, if they're all sold out, screw it. They're just being smarter about it, which is worse for us in terms of recommending value the next year.
I think that's what kind of TCL did with their large sizes. They way overpriced it. They didn't expect Hisense to come in and literally be at Black Friday pricing out the gate. TCL's like, doing the traditional start high and start going low as you approach Black Friday. Hisense is like, Super Bowl's coming up, boom, 100-inch, 2,000, buy it up, and it's gone. And TCL's like, wait, we just reduced the price of the 2023 98-inch. We didn't even get a chance to sell it. And they already sold out the 2024 for this month's allocation. I'm sure there's more coming.
Yeah, and FOMO, Robert will tell you that, he has the roadmap for the year already in certain things. But that can change. Hi, Jen. That can change at the moment. So a lot of times these companies will see one TV company make a move, then they make the move.
Yeah.
Or as you've mentioned, they talk to their inventory and say, hey, look, we only have a few of these left, and either they drop it or they raise it. So Sony historically has kept their prices high because they know they don't have to. The A95L didn't need to drop in price because it was selling out. Why would you drop it? It makes no sense. And then TCL and those guys, look at the UX. The UX was limited supply. It was very expensive. When it didn't sell, they dropped it. So they keep changing it, but they change it on the fly. So it's really, really hard to keep track of.
Hello, Bush Green. Hello, Jennifer. People are jumping in. Hey, Ian. Everyone's coming by. And just to let everyone know, Jennifer makes her own content in her own channel. It's amazing. We use it all the time as a sample for streaming and HDR in general. And we don't get copyright strikes when we use it. So thank you, Jennifer, for being so generous with your content. I know, right? And Bowman, you're not fueling speculation, but now I'm beginning to think that it would be no shock if they just repackaged it as a different number, but the same TV. Now, would that be technically a new TV for 2024? Yes, but it's the same A95L. So we don't know. Now, I'm fueling speculation. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but it's quite possible they under predicted the popularity of a super expensive TV.
And that, especially that size, FOMO. The reason why I say no is that their focus over to mini LED, for me, shows that they're comfortable saying, look, we already have the best TV in the world. Let's leave it here. And now let's focus here. With the reference monitor being the same as the X95M or whatever model we saw, I think they're comfortable saying, hey, this one's all set. But to your guys' point, does that really work if they're sold out? And we also saw this with the QN95C from Samsung last year, an excellent TV that was only available for what, FOMO? It was for value, ABT, a lot of the installation. Best Buy would have sold out of those if they had them. That TV was awesome, and they didn't have that. So I hope they didn't do the same thing here with the A95L, because they have to fulfill the diamond dealers and these other guys, and it may have been and they may be making more now. That's something that we also don't know. Because it's a current TV, FOMO, with the current chipset, they may be able to make them now versus being done.
Yeah. And Jennifer, it's just speculation. We don't know if the A95L will be discontinued for 2024 now, because Sony hasn't said anything, right? They haven't said
No.
yes or no. It's just people on AVS forums, the owners forums are speculating, and it's, the internet being what it is. One person says, "Oops, I dropped something," and suddenly everyone's dropping something, right?
Yeah.
So
It'll
yeah.
be pandemonium though, I tell you right now, if they release that TV. If they say,
Yeah,
"What's up,
well,
Garrison?"
only if people think it's actually a new model. When they realize, oh, it's like the X93L, which is the
Yeah.
X95K.
But
So
it's the whole Master Series thing. I'm buying Master Series. You think you have,
yeah,
like, look at Terry, my boy. He thinks he got that Z9K. He's like, cool, I got 3 years. A9G lasted 3 years.
that was so 2019.
Absolutely.
No,
Hi,
but
Garrison.
even
How are you?
the Z9D had its reputation intact for years, and
Still,
now
yeah.
it's like G1 to G2 to G3 to G4. If you're an LG fan, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't be chasing these LGs.
Well,
Every year, suddenly it got better and better and better.
Well, you remember too with the Z series, the Z9G. Then you had the Z8H, the Z9J, and we were really
Mhm.
is that a Master Series? Well, it is, but it isn't, but it is, and that's where they started to really annoy people. The A95L being so expensive and late in the year, the last Master Series OLED was the A90J. So in theory, that should be time wise
Yeah.
fine, but they never said that they get 2 years out of them. We're just kind
Oh,
of hoping so.
yeah. And we're kind of used to that, especially with OLED, because going from let's say C9, C10, C1, and C2, very similar. And then suddenly the MLA generation pushed everything at such a quick cycle
Yeah.
with improvements with every cycle. So,
Well,
but Garrison,
the C8 and I would say this: the C8 and
uh-huh.
C9 to me were more closely aligned to the MLAs. To me, the CX was dim and tried to be more accurate, and then they pulled it up with C1, C2. But for a little bit, that CX they did change a little bit to try to make it more accurate, which I thought was a mistake, and it's good now. But what's up, Garrison? How are you, my man?
I
Or my
think
friend?
Garrison's question, it really is directed towards what you went through at the end of last year before you chose your 8380L, A80L. So Garrison asks, hey, FOMO and Brian, just tuned in looking to upgrade from the Panasonic 55-inch plasma. This is a good TV. So he is accustomed to a very good TV for its day. Now he's ready to upgrade 65-inch Samsung LED in 2020. So they're a little bit brighter, right? So 2020 TV. The
Don't do it.
budget, maximum budget, 3,500. Wow, thankfully you're upgrading this year because you got some pretty good options at the 77-inch size, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely.
Now, gaming, streaming, sports, movies. And I see gaming, and suddenly I'm like, oh, okay. 9 feet by 15 feet wall. So decent height, decent width. Looking at X95L. Okay, so X95L, budget is there. If you're looking at an 85-inch, barely, because it's still pretty expensive. I think that's about where it is right now.
I think
So if
so.
you're looking at 85, and it depends on how far you sit, but 7 feet, 8 feet is fine for 85 inches. Oh, is the X95L just good enough for gaming? Because it didn't say how much of a serious gamer he is, but I'm going to say casual gamer. Is the X95L good enough, or would you go with the new 83-inch G4? But that's not 3,500. That's going to be over
6 grand.
5,000.
Yeah, 6.
6 grand, right? So 3,500, we're looking at the S90C 77-inch or 83-inch A80L, which is what you have at 4 grand, and that's still above his budget. We're going to stay within 3,500. Oh man, I think the X95L will do everything you want well, but the gaming will be slightly compromised. What do you think?
It's just very hard. Your plasma.
Oh
Well, you
wait,
have a
he's not
Sam.
a serious gamer, so
Okay,
I
not
think
a serious
that
gamer.
might help.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So the X90 to me, the X95L and the X93L are both great choices. I
Mhm.
mean, the problem is you've had a plasma for many years. The real question you have to ask yourself is, are you good going from your plasma to your Samsung LED? Because if you have a plasma and you love them, you're going to be allergic to blooming of any kind. So I would always go OLED, but it looks like you're comfortable with a 65-inch Samsung LED. Why aren't you looking at Samsung for gaming? And I was wondering why you're going from Panasonic, Samsung to Sony. I would think that you would stick with Samsung. There's a lot more options in that regard. Uh, and gaming is far better on Samsung, but the best
So
picture
then
quality.
that would open up the Q190C, which is 2300, 85 inch, right? 2400, something like that. So if you're open to an 85-inch Q190C, which is a phenomenal TV, by the way, it would be, I'd say, one tier just below the X95L, but you're saving a lot of money, like over $1,000. But its image quality, the X95L, is slightly better. Is it worth that extra premium? That's your call. But gaming on the Q90 will be better. If that's even a consideration. If not, I say go get the X95L. It is a good TV. So if you're not sure, it's a good TV, flat out. I cannot think of an alternative.
Well, the problem with the X95L is the only problem I have with it is it's not very bright in comparison to the brightest LEDs. So as long as you're okay buying that TV, knowing there may be one that's 4,000 nits next year, then that's the only thing that's going to be hard with recommending the X95L right now. As good as it is, it's going to be eclipsed by something twice as bright with better local dimming. So that's
the mini LED, yes, but it's going to be what, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000. You don't even know what that new Sony.
Now we're talking about money now.
Right?
That's right. We have to buy these things. Damn, I forgot about that.
I know, right? If we can only borrow it like reviewers do.
Exactly.
Hey, this is a great follow-up. So Consumer Reports currently predict reliability rating.
Who watches Consumer Reports? Do you guys still read? Is it already?
And TCL 3.5. So this is so nuanced, Brad. So I want to add a bit more detail. If most people buying TCL and Hisense are buying TVs under $500, and most people buying Samsung, Sony, LG are buying TVs over $1,000, right there you have a separation in price that automatically make the higher price TVs better. And I'm going to use Best Buy as a statistic as far as satisfaction, right? Because they have a lot of buyers. If you go to Best Buy, you look at the Q7, the U7K at the 75-inch size, because it's pretty premium. It's close to 1,000, 4.8 across the board. Now, as you go lower down the price range, it becomes 4.6, 4.5, and then it doesn't even break 4.0, right? But if the number of people buying TCL and Hisense are significantly on the budget side, I think it matches price because Sony and Samsung, or Sony specifically, doesn't play below $700. So if you buy a Sony, you're automatically paying a little bit more. And if you look at the Samsung review of TVs, though, under $500, they're not great either. So this is very nuanced. Now, above 2,000, you got super large Hisense, super large TCL. I don't know if their quality control is to the same level of like a $3,000 65-inch Sony, right? So that may be a different discussion. But for sure, I think the 3 out of 5 and 3 out of 5 for the Hisense and TCL are probably for their budget models. Definitely look, and Amazon works as well. Look at Amazon, look at Best Buy, and look at the quality reviews related to, my TV just shut down. Ignore the delivery issues. Ignore Best Buy's bad customer service, right? I mean, sometimes you give 1 star because the installer had BO. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous reasons why they give 1 star. But look at the actual reviews where they complain about, it doesn't turn on. I mean, that's what I look at. First, does it even turn on? Did it stop turning on? Is there this crazy red flare everywhere? And you'll notice that those things, for the most part, are taken care of above a certain price point. But this is still good to know, though, because if you're buying a budget TV, beware. I think this 3 out of 5 is going to affect any TV at the budget size.
Well, FOMO, didn't you say when you and I last year looked up the QM8 versus the UAK on Amazon, wasn't there an interesting disparity where they had a separate reliability? What was the thing where it had a separate reliability score, but you found that they were the same? What was that?
No, it was
QM8, right?
It was, I forgot which one. Yeah, it was the QM8. And then QM8. Amazon said to you, warning, this product has a high return rate. So either,
at 85. Yep.
Either at 85, people just either didn't like it.
That's right.
It had nothing to do with quality, just didn't like it. Or 2, there were a bunch of reviewers that reviewed it, finished it, and returned it.
And I never saw that before. But if you went under the buying, it had this big thing saying warning. And then when FOMO and I both looked at, I think the UAK, it had the same reviews in terms of its ratio. So it's kind of hard to go by that.
Yeah. And
love you too, Ian.
Mr. G, welcome. Made it. What did I miss? I think I want to pull us back on topic just a little bit.
On topic? What?
2023 TVs and 2024 TVs.
Yes.
I think with the exception of specific features, they are the same. Arguably, maybe 2023 may be better in certain things, right? So the features in 2024 that you specifically should be looking for if you're waiting for it is 83-inch MLA OLED, the brightest OLED you can get, the G4 83-inch, or the G4's better AI processing if you're interested in seeing what LG can do to match the XR Clear, or the Samsung matte screen because you need the anti-reflection on the S95D. But my expectation is the S90C, S90D, very similar. The X95L with a normal mini LED from Sony, not their 4000 nit, very similar. Or if you're just watching basic content, the 2023 TV will look identical to 2024. You're watching news, TV shows, Friends.
Mm-hmm.
Friends is not going to look better on the best 2024 TV compared to the best 2023.
Yeah.
Be very or 144 hertz gaming. I forgot to mention that.
I
right?
was just
So
going to say
G4,
that.
yeah, LG G4 C4 introduces 144 hertz. But if you're not a PC gamer, because a lot of people ask me, right, is motion going to be better at 144? Nope, exactly the same. Other than the processor. Yeah.
So you bring up an excellent point. I think this was a bigger discussion a few years ago when it was HDMI 2.1 versus 2.0. When it was HCR,
fiasco.
Right? HCR versus non-HCR. These were really big things that you were like, damn, I can't believe I don't have that. Now we all have HCR, we all have Dolby Vision or HDR 10 Plus. You have the basic advanced features for every TV. So no matter what you choose, you're covered in regards to resolution, right, FOMO? Bright TVs, great. So we are in a really good place to recommend last year's models. The problem is you are in this dicey situation where last year's models are selling very quickly and the sizes are limited. Look at the Samsung S90, our highest rated TV last year, gone.
Yeah.
I mean, gone. So it's, you have
gone
even
from Costco at least.
From Costco, but Robert couldn't order it for me. So
yeah, whatever's there is there.
So what we're seeing now is that we're not even having the time to really do the wait and see FOMO. That's why this stream is so important.
Yeah.
And the fear of missing out part of it, like I said, to me, the G4 will be very different at all sizes. I think the extra brightness in the processor is worth waiting for. C series, buy whatever you want from last year or the year before. I think the A80L TVs, things like that, are going to be very the same next year, unless you really need the new interface of the A95L. I think the Hisenses will be very similar. Same with TCLs. They say 25% brighter.
So Hisense will be bigger.
Yeah,
that's what you're getting.
Yes, but like TCL, for instance, the Q7 and the Q7-8 or Q7M8, M8. What the hell is it called? What's the Q7 now? Q7. The QM7.
QM7, because they added mini LED. Yeah.
So the QM7, for instance, I think is going to be a big hit because it's basically last year's QM8. So to me, those are worth waiting for. But if your budget is only Q7 money, get it. Right. So but I guess that's where, you're bringing us back to center FOMO, was where we're talking about the fantasy of a G4. But if the G4 is not going to be in your price point, you'll be waiting a year anyway. So
you're just watching Friends. Again, you're watching Friends. G4,
Columbo,
G3,
baby, and a Z9K.
It's the same. Yeah. And I forgot, Leo brought us back to 900D. And I should have mentioned Samsung's 900D has their 8K next generation upscaling for motion and just resolution upscaling. It's supposed to be amazing. We thought it looked great, but again, I'd like to bring it in to compare it to OLED. But that's another reason, is if you're into the latest in image quality upscaling to a higher resolution from, let's say, cable to what looks to be the sharpest you can get, then you have the Samsung 8K 900D. So thanks for that reminder. And Bullman, thank you for the super chat. I have an S95B. That's a very good QD OLED, first generation that I think is still a great TV, but it's still on sale. I watch a lot of YouTube TV and sports in green and dark scenes look messy. 65-inch A95L, or wait for the G4 to see how it compares. At this point, Bullman, wait for the G4 to see how it compares, because A95L is struggling with streaming with the greens in the dark scenes. Classy and I have been comparing stuff, and at certain low luminance between 0 nits and 2 nits, just low light scenes, the greens just, it doesn't look right, or it's too green. So Sony needs to have a fix for that if they can. But this is not a problem on the Samsung TVs, S90C, S95C, and not a problem on the G series, G3. So if you think it looks messy on the S95B, it may not necessarily look better on the A95L because this is with streaming. Now, it doesn't happen on the A95L with direct HDMI 4K with higher bit rate. It's the low bit rate stuff that the A95L is struggling. Yes, I know XR Clear and all that, but it's not able to handle this. So it's very use case specific. Wait for the G4. Why not? Let us test this stuff to see, because this is the next generation. Every generation, their processor just gets better and better across all the makers, regardless. And the G4 this year is receiving all the processing love from LG. Whereas, on the Samsung, it's just the 900D that's receiving all the love. And on the Sony, still a mystery. We don't know what's receiving love next year.
The G4 is poised to decimate everything.
And that's your prediction. That is your prediction.
Because someone said, hey, does the S24 Ultra have the matte screen? It has a form of it, but that thing goes out. You're watching that at the beach. So if you're going to bring your QD OLED, but I think that the G4 is poised with the A95L being an older TV and being expensive. The G4 is poised to dominate. Samsung has the old processor. They have the matte finish. If you love it, you'll buy it. If you don't, but I think for the enthusiasts, G4 has a clear path to the Super Bowl, like the Detroit Lions did before they started getting smoked.
And Ryan, I just want to give a shout out to parents with daughters. I have a daughter, also a teen, who not in the ER, but she had a knee surgery, and I spent an entire week where she was bedridden. Every step was pain. I had to help her just walk to the restroom. Like every step, she was in tears. I know how you feel. And Brian, you have daughters. It is tough being a parent. And Ryan, we appreciate what you do as a father. I don't know how old your daughter is, but just children are tough, man. Just shout out to the parents out there.
Yeah. And shout out to you single people. Enjoy being single.
Or single parents.
Single
You're not enjoying
parents,
it.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you don't have kids, man, hang out.
Yes. Yeah, it's
hopefully everything gets better, right?
And Nigel wants to add that he's very happy with gaming on the X95L on the Xbox Series X. So there you go, a happy casual gamer. Yeah. And I know most Sony PS5 gamers, they love all the various Sony TVs, OLED, non-OLED. They think it's fine.
Yeah, they're great. It's just all you're talking about with Sony is the flexibility of image. I mean, even with the A80L, there's just not a lot of functionality where, like I said, with the LG C1, when I have banding, I can always drop the black level down. Really can't do that with Sony. You're kind of stuck at what it is. There's not a lot of flexibility. Hi, Lisa. Yeah. How are you, love?
And now, many of you who are planning to buy a TV in 2024, let us know why not get a 2023 TV. Because my goal is I want to convince you to get a 2023 TV just to save money. I don't think the 2024 TVs are any more reliable. If anything, you could even say they're less reliable because every year you want to cut corners, make more profit. Like they say, TVs were made differently back then. And every year that passes is back then was better made for some reason. So if you can get a 2023 TV, I will convince you to do so. So let me know if you're waiting for a 2024 TV, specifically, what is it you're waiting for? What is it you watch? And hopefully we can change your mind because other than large size TVs, that's a 2024 thing.
Well, and FOMO, you made a great point just now about them being made not as well. It's not just that they're not being made as well. There's also the initiative for the environment, which is great, but they are being made a little bit more flimsy.
Okay, you know what? Let me hit that. The initiative for the environment. If you notice the power, so and this is such a good point. Maybe they could have added a more powerful power board PSU, but what would that do? That would raise their average power consumption for whatever reason, right? If they're making their TVs to be more power, I don't want to say efficient, because you can make it power efficient by having it powerful, but just have the right algorithm to control that. But if they just want to brute force it, you know what? Just give it a sucky power board. Like the G2 and the G3 83-inch size had a weak power board, and so they kept on failing. Especially
I had the same one as a smaller. But if you operate it the way that you see Samsung display, where they're able to achieve it through algorithm versus efficiency. But my point also is, by trying to be more efficient, but also the packaging for these TVs. A lot of people have said to me that they don't like that Sony doesn't put a plastic coating on their screen anymore. And that's why
I
you
didn't
see
know
some,
that.
I didn't pay attention to, peeling it off. You're like, where is it? So I think, as you're saying, cutting costs and the environment, TVs are built, if you look at the Samsungs from the KS9000s, all metal. Now they're all
Yeah.
plastic. So it's, to your point, things aren't made more cheaply, but I'm not sure last year they're made much better.
So this is a great question, Cosmo. Brian and I did have a close look at both the Hisense 110, 4K, 10,000 nit, and the 900D. Like, Brian loved the 900D. So I'm going to let you answer this because it's hard for me to say in a vacuum. They both looked great because it's image is designed to look amazing. Brian, what are your thoughts? 110-inch versus 900D.
So the 110-inch, there was nothing about it that said this is 10,000 nits. Like, the demo material was great. It didn't look a ton better than the UX, which only you and I spent a lot of time with. It's different demo material. I think it still looks great, but I would favor, as far as the 900D overall. Now, I don't think the 900D is going to be even 4,000 nits, let alone, it might be, what was the 900C? 2,500 nits, maybe? It wasn't that bright.
Yeah, no, it did not exceed 2,000 nits. Yeah,
no, and they didn't
I don't think so.
And they didn't say anything to us about peak brightness being their focus. If anything, it might not be bright at all. Their AI processing is going to be the big thing. I think you'll see better overall quality from Samsung, but as far as which one had more of a wow, obviously the 110 being 110 alone, I thought was the sexier TV just because it was massive. Now the Samsung is much more elegant. That center stand is beautiful. It just hovers. It's bezel-less. So actually, Cosmo, they're just very different schools of thought.
The new One Connect box.
Yeah, I mean, everything is elegant. So I guess what you're saying, Cosmo, is Hisense 110 is like a beefier UX. If you like that, then that and the qled, you'll like that. But the Samsung is going in a totally different direction. And it's not about which one is better. They're just totally different. But I would say the 900D with the AI processing is going to be very interesting.
And to your point, Brian, about brightness, right? So Samsung is very focused on telling you what they're proud of. Whether it's in the first look or the innovation room, they were like, hey, we did this really well. So in the innovation room, the focus was on the matte screen and AI processing. There was no mention of brightness at all.
Not a damn thing.
So trust me, if it was brighter, they'd have a special display. Look how bright it is in 2024.
So,
I suspect, maybe 5% brighter. Just some incremental improvement. The 110, what was Hisense's focus? 10,000 nits. I mean, they're banging that 10,000 nit drum. So obviously, not hit 10,000, but it's going to be brighter pixel per pixel than 900D. But what about processing? What about the stuff that Samsung was focused on this year, right? Image processing, image upscaling, sports motion. Hisense didn't talk about any of that. There's no talk about sports motion. So get the TV for what you need, not to say that maybe you might get both, right? Come on, Cosmo, you're rolling in the money.
But FOMO, what's even funnier, remember we were talking to Florian about, and we asked them these random questions. They're not tough questions, but while we're talking about the matte finish, FOMO goes to the whole room of Samsung people, hey, did you guys hear about that Sony 4,000 nits? We're all in the dark. and Florian looks at us and goes, well, not much content over 1,000. And FOMO goes, yeah, but I'm pretty certain the reference monitor they have now is 4,000. I mean, Samsung may miss the boat this year in terms of peak brightness.
Oh, they did.
I think they were like, ooh.
But next year, trust me, it'll be
11,000.
That's the focus.
It'll come with goggles. Like, oh, okay.
Hey, I love this comment by Satnus.
What's up, Satnus?
Review and return will be a great channel name. You're welcome. So, Brian, if you're not married to tech therapy, Brian's review and return channel is my vote.
The problem is I'm the only YouTuber that doesn't do that. Me and you are the only ones that don't do that.
You're this review and keep.
Review and keep. I'm looking at them all over here.
Broke.
Yeah,
review
exactly.
And go broke, right?
Exactly. Although people, they bring them back to Best Buy, they're like, oh, yeah, I hate it. Why'd you get rid of it? It's crap. They have to return it. So,
review and cut your credit card. Review and get.
Put them on 9 different credit cards. Hey, Aunt Sue, let's go buy a TV.
Oh, no, I got it. Review and repo.
Yeah,
Thank
when you
you.
do the walk of shame, you go in with a beard on and a hat. You're like, hey, what's up? Like, what's up,
They just
Brian?
repoed.
Yeah, like, what's up, Brian? Like, hi. It's awesome.
And yeah, oh, the TCL 115 inch, did it look amazing, Brian? 5,000 nits? I thought it looked great.
Oh yeah, I mean, the QM8 at that size, awesome. But again, guys, these are going to be expensive. So I know that's the kind of bait and switch, right? FOMO S5, the Hisense, couple $1,000. They're going to be, the UX was $5,000 at 85. At 100 plus, it's going to be 9,000-10,000. And we already know, I think, what did they say? 15, maybe 20 for the QM8 at 115?
Yeah, I mean, they haven't, I mean, they said under 20, which means 1999.
1999, baby.
1999.
Well, and I think, would they say the legs on that thing, you do have to have that custom installed. I believe the 115 has to be custom installed.
They haven't, so both the 110 and the 115, they haven't decided what the final product in terms of legs and furnishings and sound bars, whatever. So they're still deciding that because it affects the price ultimately.
So what's also going to be really hard too, and I love how this whole conversation is about 100-inch TVs, is if you guys think you're going to have a hard time finding reviews on your 75-inch TVs, who do you think's reviewing these TVs?
Yep.
Of your favorite reviewers that measure everything, you're going to have none. No one's going to be able to, buy a bunch of, QM8s at 115, ratings and be like, what? You're crazy. So it's going to be hard to get reviews on some of these in that regard.
And sorry I missed it, Rob. So he has a super chat, and this is a great super chat because you parrot this question every year. Sony, where's your 8K? So Z9K, which is a great TV, Rob. He's looking to upgrade. Will Sony have a new 8K? And Brian, any thoughts? You think so? Is it going to be that 4,000 nit TV?
I mean, so if they don't, here I'll answer this, Rob. I think there was no indication that I saw that prototype is going to be 8K. Yeah, I don't know if you felt it. I have no information, but it didn't seem like it was going to be 8K. Here's the problem, though. Just like LG, would you buy a Z series FOMO without MLA?
Oh, you're talking about the Sony Z9K.
Well, no, I'm saying if you
LG Z.
Let's just say hypothetically they release a Z9M, and it doesn't have this new prototype built into it. Would you buy it?
True. No.
So like the Z series releasing, if they did release the Z3 is a real TV. It's coming this year.
Right.
LG. Had they released that last year at $30,000 without MLA, would you have bought it? My answer is absolutely not. So Rob, So Rob, there should be a new Z9K. There was a Z9L in Japan. I don't think they're going to just bring that over because I think they'll cripple it by having it be not as bright as their X95M if that's the TV that's coming out. Yeah. So it's hard. I would say yes, but I don't know. It'd have to be a new TV.
And I'll add to that, it cannot be 4,000 nits at 8K because the amount of energy, and I know it's not directly linear, but it'll be almost twice as much power to get 4,000 nits out of the 8K than a 4K similar size TV. It's just, they won't do it. It just doesn't make sense.
What's funny is I'm going to try and get back to Value Electronics to do a Z9K versus 900C because a lot of you guys are looking at those TVs now because I don't know why. You're just like, the TV, you're like, I wanted that so bad. It's 5 years old. Well, let's do it.
It's this dream of getting the best from Sony, not realizing that the Z9K is not better than the X95L. Arguably brighter, but it's not better. The X95L, for most people, XR clear, you're going to notice all of that. And 8K on a non-OLED is pointless, honestly. On the Samsung, the 8K is still pointless as a spec, but because it has the better AI, then it makes it a reason to get the 900D. Not because it's 8K, but you're getting better AI upscaling compared to the 4K. That's all.
And that's what they're in FOMO. That's so smart that they're doing that because they knew for a while if you wanted the best Sony LED, you had to buy the Z series.
Yeah.
You had to get that. Now they're saying, well, let's do that. But I think they've made the mistake, FOMO, where it's not just the process. They're putting a feature the others won't have. And that's going to be hard because it might backfire. I think it's going to backfire and hurt the rest of the lineup.
Yeah. And Stephen has a great question because I know
Hi, Steve.
many of you who are lurking are wondering, we're talking 2024 TVs. We're talking 2023 versus 2024. And
Yeah.
one of the few TVs I tell you to wait for is 100-inch, 98-inch in 2024 because it's less expensive. And this is it. This 100-inch Hisense U76 at $2,000, so compelling, but is upscale trash. So let me take a step back. It's no, and even though I haven't seen it myself, I can tell you that the processor is no worse than this U7K. The problem is what Brian said. At 100 inches, what was maybe not noticeable, the size of a pixel, is now the size of a baseball. And you're sitting, because of my recommendation, you're sitting 8 feet away from a 100-inch TV. Is it possible you'll notice more artifacts? It is possible. The question is, will it bother you or not? So this is something that is so hard because a lot of people. So Stephen, if you're coming from, I apologize to you Insignia owners. If you're coming from a 32-inch Insignia, this is an upgrade, my friends.
If we have any Insignia like engineers, they're like, this freaking guy.
Every time.
Jesus.
It's like a dentist. I quit.
This video sponsored by Insignia.
Or Vizio, right?
Man.
So I mean, you're coming from
it's a great TV,
yeah. You're okay. No. If you're coming from a lesser TV, you're okay. If you're coming from like, I don't know, Samsung Q9FN, right? You're used to a premium experience. And it's not cheap. It's $2,000. And you're coming from a $2,000 OLED you bought 3 years ago. No, it's going to be a different experience. But
but then again, who the hell goes from a crappy 55-inch and goes, you know what, honey? We're doing 100. It's
for
very
Brian, for 2,000.
But I mean, do you guys know how big that is? I mean, here comes G-Man. You know why he's got so much money? Because he just keeps.
Wait, Brian. Did I not just show you guys, for those of you who missed it, the U76 is sold out. So even if Stephen Boxey wanted to buy it today, not at Best Buy, maybe somewhere else, but not at Best Buy. It's already sold out.
And where is that going to be? I mean, that's, And look, here's the problem, guys. The whole sold out thing, we haven't discussed this. When they're sold out, there is no replacing it.
Well, early in the year, the U76 probably.
No, but I'm saying if you have a TV, let's say if someone said, hey, track down, this is what someone said to me the other day. They found a 77-inch S90C on this kind of shady green toe, one of those things, right?
the white van that shows up, with no windows.
Or one of those, yeah. And I'm like, okay, but just know if that TV's defective, there is no backup. There is no another. It's already sold out. So buying these things when there's only a few left, just keep in mind, they'll just say, we'll give you the equivalent. And that equivalent is cheap. So there isn't another option. So just keep in mind.
Or get a refund.
Why am I the voice of reason all of a sudden with these big TVs? If you tuned in 2 years ago, FOMO was like 55, baby. Gotta go 55.
And Getty wants to know, 2024 TV, G4 prices will be the same release price of the G3. I think so, Getty. I don't think it's going to go down, mostly because inflation has brought everything up. Yeah. So even if technically it's lower price, once you adjust for inflation, it ends up being the same price. So if the G4 price the same as G3, technically it's cheaper than when the G3 launched last year. That's how much inflation has gone up. So I think it'll be very similar within 2 or 3%. I mean, plus or minus 2 or 3%. But then that's never the real price, right? Look at street pricing 3 months later. By Prime Day, you're going to hit the street pricing hard. And I think even street pricing will be very similar too.
Well, and I think everyone's like, well, hey, because it's brighter, they're going to charge more. They can't do that. They can't say, hey, you know what? The 83's got MLA now. It's going to be 10 grand. They know that that's not going to work because they don't want to also say the last one didn't have MLA.
Yeah.
So that's on them.
This is a great deal that Jared got. I ended up picking, thank you for the super chat, Jared. I ended up picking a 2022 TV, the 55-inch Sony A95K, which is a great TV, by the way. It was the king of TVs in 2022 for $1,000. So it's a QD OLED, first generation, $1,000. How do you think the A95K will do in 2024 after quite a few updates? It's a good TV. Basically, it is a better looking image out of the box than its competitor that year in 2022, which would have been the S95B. So
that's excellent.
And the S90C or the A95L the following year is slightly brighter, but the A95K is still a good TV. Lisa still has the A95K. She loves it. Now, will it win a shootout? No, but it will beat most TV's socks off. And at $1,000, I
Yeah.
you win, man. $1,000. Yes.
Well, if you
Great
remember,
TV.
the A95K came up the other day against the Hisense and all that. I'm like, you're out of your mind. I don't care what new Hisense you have. It's a QD OLED Master
Unless it's
Series.
100 inches.
Unless it's like a midget versus a Goliath. But as far as like picture quality, you're good for
Yeah.
many, and arguably you're
Oh,
good for many
yeah.
years with any modern OLED.
Mhm.
But a QD
That
OLED,
85, that 65-inch A95K, I still have it. It's in
yeah, they're
my
great
my
TVs.
bedroom. Wife loves it. We're gonna watch it until it washes out and something bad happens to it. That's not going anywhere. It's a good TV. Rock out. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. Ordering the Sony A80L over the C3, but people say the Sony A80L is very dim compared to the C3. Okay, let's talk about this.
It's behind me.
On paper, the specs, and not just on paper, right? If you look at patterns and all that stuff, everyone's pattern will show the same thing. C3 beats it on certain peak specular highlights. You throw in real content, and suddenly, like, wait a minute, why does the C3 look dimmer? And that should tell you the story. I talked at length with Classy and others who had both TVs side by side. And at the end of the day, like, you know what? We don't know what the C3 did, but on patterns, it's amazing. Or what the Sony did, because on patterns, it's very weak. You put in real content consistently, the A80L, slightly better specular highlights. And we're talking slightly, but ultimately, at worst, they're the same. At best, Sony is brighter. Now, we're not talking sports. We're talking just watching film, streaming, whatever. There's just slight specular highlight differences. I go with the A80L because of the XR clear. It does its job, right? But the C3 isn't a bad TV, so.
No, but I think it's funny because I do get the question a lot. If you feel it's too dim, it's almost like the C series with dynamic tone mapping not enabled. There is brightness preferred. There's gradation preferred. There are ways to make it brighter, but if you find that it's too dim, almost any OLED, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be too dim.
Now, are you watching Dolby Vision? Because Dolby Vision arguably could be too dim or it could be too bright. It depends on the TV model.
Yeah, but I mean, I watched Lost Boys today. It was on Dolby Vision bright. I mean, I have this TV in a bright room. I think it's fine. I mean, is it the brightest TV I've ever had? No. I mean, but I don't know. But I'm not as much as I love bright TVs, I like effective brightness. I never felt the ADL was too bright. It's not the brightest OLED out there, but then that's not what you're shopping for. If you're looking for that, then you got to go with the G series or QD OLED.
Or get the A95K. A95K will have brighter luminance than the A80L.
It will.
That'll be brighter than the C3.
Then again, QD OLED. So at least we have that delineation where at least you have to go with either an MLA or QD OLED. So
rock out's going from a 65 to a 77
perfect seating distance.
Yes. So this is the 80L 77. I think the 77-inch A80L is a great TV. You're fine.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And that's not too big. You'll totally.
No. I think you should go 85-inch if you're 8 feet away. But that's me. Heck. Okay. So for context, if you saw my viewing distance at 8 feet away, personally, if I had the space, I'd get a 100-inch, 98-inch TV. So yes, there's a lot of space left for you to get bigger over the course of the next few years. Go to 77, and then you can continue to upgrade to an 83, and then upgrade to a 97 without having to sit any further. I think you'll be fine. You're good. And hey, thank you for that super chat, Carlton Martin. Suggestion for 65-inch Panasonic Plasma replacement, 65V T60, torn between the G3 and the S95C. Should I bump up size, 77-inch, mixed usage, casual gamer, help? Oh, man.
You got to go up in size because the VT60 has a large bezel. So in theory, both the 65 inches are going to be quite a bit smaller than your VT60. So your TV, so in effect, it'll be smaller. You have to go up.
Casual gamer, 77-inch S90C. You're saving money. It's a better TV than the G3 as a gaming TV. And both, as far as just, WebOS ties in, they're both okay. They're both stable. I like the S90C. I think the G3 at the 77-inch size, it's bright, great for content, but gaming on the S90C is just better last year. Now, G4, different story possibly, but the G3, the S90C is the better TV. S95C, Some complain with the dropout issues on the One Connect box. Why risk it unless you need the One Connect box?
Well, and the S95C, I think the QD is just a more exciting technology.
Yeah, it's
You
better
know,
technology
and
for
I think
sure.
you'll like it a lot. But trust me, do not get the same size because I have those plasmas. The bezels are massive compared to what we
The
have
thick,
now.
yeah,
So, and
yeah.
you'll end up taking that. And the VT60 had this really interesting stand. You're gonna take that thing down, get this little TV. You're like, what the hell? It's really a lot smaller. It might be a few inches smaller, actually. Bezel to bezel. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Hey, W. I love these one-letter names, right?
I wish
Because
mine
it's
was
like
like that.
so simple. B.
B.
Yeah, we confuse you with all the other B names out there. 83. Okay, so this is a good question because you're going with size versus brightness. The 83-inch C3 versus the 77-inch G3, same price, 9 feet, gaming and movies. So 9 feet is quite a distance, but the 77-inch G3 is significantly brighter than the C3. If you're gaming in HDR, the MLA on the G3, just generally speaking, the HDR experience, I would prefer you go larger. But it's just the G3 is such a tier brighter in everything, specular highlights. I say go with the 77-inch G3 and then upgrade to a larger, excuse me, G6 years down the line. What do you think, Brian?
I think
Because I know,
I'll steal your advice completely. If you're coming from a smaller TV, like a 55-inch, 77 will be large enough for you. But if you're going from a 75, for instance,
or
to
how about a 65? Let's say
or
coming from a
60, yeah, I
65.
think the
Yeah.
77 is still a big enough. I think I go with FOMO because I like the 83-inch size because I have a C1. I love it. But in FOMO, we always say this: once you break that 75, 77 in size, you cannot go back down.
True.
So I'd rather see
True.
you stay at 77 with a superior TV than wait for the 83-inch G4, for instance. So once you go, like for me, I'm stuck. Once I'm at 85 or 83, I can't go down to a QD OLED. Or I would have had a 77-inch S95C. I love those TVs.
No, that's true. Absolutely. And Steven wants to know why reviewers don't review the B series OLED. So I don't review it, but I recommend it. Price, 77-inch B3 right now, the pricing is compelling. But it's so close to the S90C, so you always have the debate. But the B3 is a solid TV. I think the B4 will also be a solid TV. It is just that the B series OLED priced within 5% to 10% of the C3 or the C2 or the C4, it makes it so difficult for reviewers to be like, well, consistently, it's just slightly dimmer. Everything else is the same.
Yeah.
And even a slight dimness, it's like in certain content, it's going to be identical. Why bother? Let's just review the C series.
Yeah.
That's probably why. I mean, there's
Yeah,
only so much space.
And it's not the most exciting TV. So I think as far as people getting views for them, or is it really worth? I don't see a lot of review samples being sent out as far as the B series. So I think it's a default TV for them. So that's probably it. Didn't take your advice.
I love this. Thanks, Tyrus, for letting us know. Our advice was not good enough for him. He didn't take our advice. Bought the 48-inch A90K. C3, not an option. Got Parkinson's. I struggle with LG remote. Hey, I got you, man.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry.
Hey. And these are the little things that it's all quality of life, right?
Yeah.
What is
that would have been a tough,
to your needs? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure we could have helped with a decision with a remote with Parkinson's. I'm very sorry. Parkinson's is devastating, and we hope you're doing okay. But if you put that in your first comment, we might have changed and said one was more ergonomic.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you said the remote is a no-go, forget it.
Someone's hand is broken. You're like, that remote. I mean, we should be more sensitive to that as far as the remotes. But I think they all stink. To be honest.
Now, the A90K in a dark room, I think it's fine. It's a great TV. Tell us how much you like it, Taurus. It is a good TV.
Yep.
It's just at the time it was released, the premium was a bit much. However, at that size, 48 inches, there are no other options. C3 is a no-go. What else? What OLED do you have at 48 inches, right?
Yeah,
because
true.
TVs at a 50-inch size and below are all crap, other than this one. But this is, the QN90C at 50 inches. Not as good as the larger ones, I think. So, yeah, you're kind of stuck. So, good job. W, the S89 S90C 77-inch is a better option. I agree. My TV of the year. If you're in America, USA, Best Buy, S89C, $19.99. What a great deal. go for it, my friend.
Try
And
finding it.
he's
But
coming from a 65-inch C10. Oh yeah,
oh,
go
you'll love it.
77.
Yeah,
You'll love it. You'll love it for sure. Unless 83-inch G4 is in the cards for you. Just don't let the wife know that you maxed out your credit card.
Yeah, I was gonna
What is it?
say it's you buy four.
$6,000. But it is good from 8 feet away. Okay, so Brian, 100-inch is the future. 2024 is the year where all the makers are releasing 100-inch TVs. Does this put projectors out of business? I think this ultra short throw projectors was supposed to be that transition
stopgap.
to
Yep.
long throw, right? That
Mhm.
home theater, that man cave. But no one expected. I'm pretty certain the ultra short throw guys did not expect this.
No.
That a 100-inch could be sold for $2,000.
No.
Does
God.
this change the ultra short throw projector's future?
Absolutely.
Or just any projector?
Well, because if you remember when like the Hisense and the LGs and the Samsung short throw projectors, it was because they were $4,000, $5,000, and the UST TV projectors were $20,000. And then when the X92 came out a number of years ago, the QN90A at 100 inches, whatever they were $23,000. The Z series was $30,000. So they thought they had a lot more time. I would argue this though, at least with the projectors, you can move them around and you can always buy a new screen or whatever. I keep telling you guys this. I don't know who you're giving that 100-inch TV to when you're done upgrading, because I wouldn't buy one because I like to switch my TVs around. To me, I have a hard time getting rid of an 85-inch TV. Nobody wants a 100-inch one. And I know people say, hey, sell it. Who's coming to your house to get that one? Like, you know what I mean? It's very hard to sell a TV and say, hey, don't come into my house and check out this TV. If you're comfortable doing that, cool. But a 100-inch TV is just not just an investment financially, which they're cheap. They're not, like, you can't move that into the kids' room. It's just, I think people are not really looking at that enough. That is your TV for a long time. Like you said, sell the house with it.
So it's kind of like, I don't want to say $2,000 is disposable because that is expensive, but at some point you're going to have $999 TVs. Like right now, it's one of those things where a 48-inch TV is given away with a sale of a new car because it's like $200, right? So at some point, the 100-inch TV comes down in price, and I'm going to use a $999 as that point. In 3 years, $999, 100-inch TV, they're like, just leave it with the house. It's not worth taking with us. Just like any other TV, most people just, Salvation Army after 4 years.
But it's back to what we said before. The get what you pay for thing cuts both ways. You cannot call Samsung or Hisense or TCL next year and say, hey, my $2,000 100-inch TV broke. They're going to go, dude, it's $2,000.
Yeah.
And I trust me, you can call Samsung for a $12,000 TV. They'll tell you the same thing. I know, they've told me. Sorry. But I mean, you're talking about build quality. You're talking about just the plastic is going to cost them $100, $200. So it's just, there's diminishing returns. Processing will be zero. Picture quality will be very hard. That processing we talk a lot about is so important at a larger size. I'm just saying, you got to slow down a little bit and see it. A big image that's ugly is just a larger ugly image. So just be careful.
Well, speaking about images that are not ugly, the 83-inch OLED C3 S90C, same WOLED type of panel, or the 77-inch A80L G3 S95C. So I think this is similar to the last individual. Garrison, it depends on what TV you're coming from. If you're coming from a 55, going to 77 is still an improvement. Going to 83 is slightly bigger, but you're losing some of that brightness if the S95C or the G3 is what you choose. So how bright is your room? If you really need the brightness, G3 is the brightest out there. If you're in a slightly darker, dimmer room, I like the S95C, but if you can get the S90C or the S89C, same image quality for a bit less, because you're really paying for the one connect box, I don't think you need it because it sounds like it's not a deal breaker considering you're considering the G3 or the A80L. The 83-inch C3 S90C, I don't like their dirty screen uniformity issues at that size last year because WOLED 83-inch has uniformity issues, whether it doesn't matter who it is, right? So with the S90C or the S89C and the S95C, your QD OLED more likely to be clean. So I would go with the 89C/S90C/95C. Get the cheaper TV because I think their audio is all kind of weak anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
I
Yeah.
agree.
That was easy. See, sometimes we agree, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Well, I mean, well, again, so Michelle, our friend Michelle Alexandria is in the chat. Michelle says, suddenly Brian is advocating for 55-inch TVs. The world has spun on its axis. I was the original immersion guy. But Michelle, those TVs were like $10,000. Now they're like $50. You want a toaster or you want a 100-inch? Yeah, I can get the 100-inch.
And hey, Michael, thanks for coming by. Here's
What's
one
up,
point,
Michael?
and this is what you were saying.
Hey, Craig.
100 inches are heavies. 100-inch
Oh my
TVs are
God,
heavy.
dude.
Okay. Well, it's not just 100-inch TVs. I think any TV, to me, over 65 inches heavy. You're going to need two people to kind of hang it. But once they're hung on the wall, and yes, 100 inches are like 140 pounds, 120 pounds, you're definitely going to have a person install a mount, make sure then the studs, or a very large console table. So it is, if you have the space, it's the way to go. Now, alternatively, projectors, if you hang it from the ceiling, you gotta hang it on the ceiling, or you have it placed long throw. I hate that stuff. Ultra short throw, it's hard to have a sound bar. I mean, every TV or solution at 100 inches or larger, they're gonna have their pain points.
They all
You
do.
find the solution that matches your pain point. So,
absolutely.
Personally, I like ultra short throws. They're easy, right? You go into a room, you poop on a white wall, you're done.
Yep.
And I continue to use ultra short throws for that reason.
Yeah. But I don't think, to your point though, FOMO, we even see with a lot of our other pals that review a lot of them, the numbers aren't great for them. I don't see the interest. I don't see a lot of channels saying, hey, I did short throw reviews and they got crazy views. I think they're still very niche because you turn the lights on and that's it. So, and the gaming performance is still not great on them. So I don't know. I think they're cool, but to your point, I don't have one. Even though I have a screen, I just don't see the point in buying one.
Well, now you have two FOMO issues. The actual deciding on the ultra short throw, which brand, AWOL, For a Movie, Hisense, I mean, there's so many of them, Samsung, and then deciding on the screen. Oh, I mean, it's like,
that's a whole.
It's 2 times the research because the better the projector, now you're going to put a little bit more into the screen. You're going to get a crap screen with a great projector, right?
So FOMO, I wish you guys were with us because when we were at M-Wave, first of all, you had a bunch of projector guys coming in and judging TVs. Again, it cuts the other way. FOMO and I were in all these demo rooms with NZ9s and the most expensive projectors in the world. And as long as it was full screen, FOMO, and the content permitted, they were awesome. The minute that black level hit, we were like, ooh.
So that was the difference between one room and the next. So both rooms had NZ9 and they had Mad VR. But one room had light leakage from some of the curtains because they didn't bring curtains, wow. And then the other room was complete darkness. It was as if it was 2 completely different projector systems.
Oh my God, yeah.
All they had to do was turn on the light and it would have been amazing. But instead, it looked kind of crappy. It's like, oh my gosh, everything looks washed out. Turns out, light leakage through the back. And so, that's really sensitive to your environment. I don't like that. I want a bit more flexibility. And so Getty wants to remind us that 9 feet away from 100-inch is theater-like immersive. Yes. I mean, you could even sit 8 feet away and you wouldn't. Okay, so IMAX, if you're sitting at typical IMAX seating and IMAX immersion, we're talking about 7 feet away is about that 60 to 80 degree viewing angle. That's normally what you are in IMAX anyway. Now, some people are like, oh, IMAX is too big. But this is how certain content is shot, quote unquote, for IMAX. So if you're watching Dune, if you're watching certain movies that was filmed with IMAX in mind, you're going to be like Getty, 8-9 feet from a 100-inch TV. And so that's why it's completely fine.
Well, and those aspect ratios are supposed to be sweeping. We talked about that the other day with those letterbox TVs years ago. The idea was sweeping. Lawrence of Arabia, that's why they do that narrow aspect ratio, is to make the whole shot. If your TV's 42 inches, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But and I will say, I know for me at 77, was the first size where that aspect ratio really felt like it was more rectangular, like it had it was large enough. So to me, that's a great large entry point. Hi, SB.
SB Digital points out something that many consumers don't realize. And we're talking the average consumer, like you said. They expect a 100-inch TV 10 years plus. Forget 100-inch. They expect all the TVs they buy to last more than 5 years. And I'm going to have to be honest, I don't even know if a 42, 55, 60-inch TV is going to last 5 years, regardless of what you pay for it.
No
I mean,
appliances, and no appliances are gonna. Your ovens, none of that is built. It's just not. I mean, think about back in the Maytag days, FOMO. You know,
there's a class action government investigation into Samsung refrigerators that aren't lasting 2 years, right? I think it's Samsung, right? I mean, it's these smart refrigerators that are just falling apart because the software, firmware, whatever it is, it's just not running. I mean, it's not keeping things cold. I mean, it's a huge issue for these smart Samsung refrigerators. And TVs, thankfully, are less complicated, but still.
Well, there was a funny. There was a funny analogy. Someone said like how the space shuttle was made like in the 80s, or the stealth bomber, but you can't put a bumper on a Cadillac that'll last more than 2 years. Or why my Apple phone all of a sudden just doesn't charge anymore. It's not a conspiracy. They're just not. If these phones look so similar now. When you put a case on them, if they never died, you would never buy another one. There's no reason to. So they have to continue to make you buy things. I mean, people had record players for how many years, and washing machines. Those things don't last. And there's really very few people that can actually repair them.
Yeah, well, not with all the smart stuff and modules you have to replace.
Yeah, 5 years is like 50 years now for a TV. I mean,
and they're expensive. That's the worst part. So that's why I say get 2023 TVs. Don't pay the premium for features that, frankly, it's just so minor. Brian,
talking about them though.
Any guesses whether Sony will release a 2024 mini LED TV? I know
we're so full of it. We're like, hey, this stuff doesn't matter. Until it does. And you'll see it here first. Hashtag.
Hashtag. It matters.
That G4 is not going to matter at all. Best TV of the year, though. Maybe I get that. FOMO always says, look, it's not a big deal until I tell you it's a big deal. It was a game changer.
well, just last year. 2,000 nits, not a big deal. Now, if it's not 4,000 nits, it's dead in my eyes.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, I think you guys have to know as channel creators, some people find you, especially years ago, they found you for a specific TV, right? Yeah, I like you because you're the Sony guy. If FOMO was the Hisense U8H guy, I was the 900E guy. I can't tell you how many comments, betray! I can't believe you bought another TV. I'm like... Like, but you told me, or they go back to a video from 2 years ago and they're like, dude, you said this is the best TV you ever made. I'm like, it was 2 years ago.
Now it's like 2 months ago.
Yeah, 2 months ago. That's old news.
Old news. How about any news? Any sign that Sony will release a mini LED at a 55-inch size? Because last year, not last year, right? Not a new mini LED at that size. Will they come back to 55-inch, or would you have to go with OLED?
It's been, what's a great question? It's been 2 years. Let's see, X95 last year was 65. The year before too. I think the 950H that was the last year where they had a 42, a 55.
Like a good TV, not like
that was their flagship. Yeah,
right.
I would say no. I think they've done the research, and it's just not a popular size anymore. It sounds ridiculous, but it was for LEDs. Not here. Yeah, I would say
in Japan, when I was in Tokyo, all the TVs on display were 55 inches. So if you need a 55-inch, you got to go to Asia for sure.
What's funny, but the X80, the X90 has a 55-inch, no?
X90, the X90 does. It does, but that's their entry level.
You're asking me about the flagships.
The flagship.
You said stuff. Mini LED. Yeah, no.
Yeah, mini LED. Yeah.
No. And what's so funny is they do, to your point, that's a great question, because even Rob Brennan has put it that way. If you want this, we have something for you. If you want that, we have something for you. But you're like, yeah, but I kind of want that a little higher end. Well, then we have this, but I don't want to go that big. They will not get you in the small places. If you want to go bigger, you got to pay more money for the higher end. So that's where Samsung is amazing. We have a 42, a 43, a 44. I got a 53. Like Samsung hits you with every size. And
Yes.
TCL is doing that again. They're doing that this year too, FOMO. They have sizes. I think the S5 has a lot of sizes from 40 something all the way up. So I just don't think so. I think Sony dealing with volume, that's just not their thing. So I would say no.
You know,
Long answer.
Garrison is just following up with his question here, debating between the 83-inch C3. It's for his basement. He doesn't need it too bright because I was saying how amazingly bright the S90C, S95C is in terms of specular highlights. And so, Garrison, it's not so much that it's brighter, but rather it's accurately bright on the specular highlights. So when you have a certain scene and the creator's intent is to have a certain specular highlight brightness against a certain brightness background, the S95C will hit that, as well as the G3, better than the C3 and the S90C at the 83-inch size, because WOLED without MLA cannot hit those specular highlights accurately. So we're talking about brightness accuracy, not just brightness for the sake of brightness.
Yeah,
so
specular highlights. Yeah, and that's
so the
what
S95C will do that.
and Garrison, we would love about OLEDs is to be able to pixel for pixel bring you that specular highlight. So it's not really a brightness that it's going to make you go, it's the specular highlights that'll jump out at you, which is again useful brightness, which is so different than, as we mentioned, 10,000 nits. I don't see that being useful brightness or brightness with purpose. And that's what we want to say. We talk about that with even TCL, 5,000 nits, cool, but what's your purpose? What's your contrast ratio if it's 5,000 nits?
And
now we're selling earbuds.
What model earbuds are you using? Oh, these are AirPods because I'm on my Mac. That's why. And it's easier to monitor Brian without wearing the headset. So on the Mac Studio, this
smoother.
Boom. Yeah, it looks smoother, right? You know. Now I do have buds for the Samsung. I honestly like Anker because value is awesome. Samsung buds obviously match Samsung, but because it's an Android, you can get away with a really good Anker for less than what Samsung charges, and the quality is pretty good. So I like Anker. You know, you get on Amazon. If it works, great. Within 30 days. If it doesn't work, it's going to die within 30 days. So I'm a big fan of the pricing and the quality of an Anker earbud. So that's what I would use on an Android. But I don't use my AirPod Pros for everything because I have an iPhone and I have a Mac Studio. All right. And Tarek wants to follow up. Hey, FOMO, 895K is awesome. Darkroom. Yes, so it is perfect for darkroom. He also bought Brian's 83-inch A80L.
Damn.
Thanks, Brian.
Are you coming to get it? When are you coming? I'll be ready for you. I'm pasting a G4 behind it. That's good.
It's too bad Sony cheaped out. I had to buy a backlit remote for it. So the new ones have a backlit. I guess you're talking about the 895. Okay, maybe Europe, because all the ones here are backlit, right?
No, the only TV that has a backlit for this year is the A95L. So they've only put backlit with their flagship. So he's right, yeah. So you can buy it.
That's too bad.
It is, yeah, because I remember breaking out. What was it? Was it the X95? I was like, no, it's a regular remote. So it's man, I didn't know that. Okay. That they did cheap out with that one. All right. Hey, thanks everyone for coming by because I know you guys are all over the world. Like Russian guy, I cannot pronounce your name. I'm sorry because they're not translated. I don't know what to say. Dude, normally you will give it your best shot.
I can't.
FOMO sometimes will be like, "Hey, brah." This one he was like, "Nah, man, Russian guy."
Thank you for the super chat. Hi guys, I'm watching you almost from the beginning. I'm waiting for the Sony X95M. So that's the next gen, whatever it ends up being, mini LED, 4,000 nits. I think it will be amazing best ever made TV. That's what Sony is saying. Well, the amazing best ever made mini LED TV, and I'm going to hold them to it. Okay, when Sony sets this expectation high, either they're going to have a lot of pissed off fans, or they're going to win something. And I'm excited. This is the direct descendant of the Z9D, which many people still talk about with nostalgia, and they have it in a glass box. They only turn it on 10 minutes a day to keep it warm, but that Z9D is their treasure, and this is supposed to be the successor.
So here's why I think it's going to be a killer, is because if we look at, thank you for the super chat, my friend, the X95, as we mentioned, probably the best mini LEDs ever made. The problem with that refinement is now you're getting the brightness down to match an OLED. are the brightest OLEDs. They're kind of meeting in the middle. And for an LED to really survive, it has to beat it with peak brightness. And Samsung and Sony have gone away from that. They've gotten to, like you said, the Q900C was not a lot brighter than the S95C. So if you're only 400 nits brighter than a QD OLED without the contrast ratio, in theory, you're not as bright. So when they get back into chasing 4,000, 5,000 nits and their blacks are very good, now you're talking. And I think that's what Sony's realizing. They're going to have excellent backlit remote control, backlit local dimming, and 4,000 nits. Then it'll decimate everything because the X90, the Z9K, very bright, not really true 4,000 nits FOMO. What they're talking about, not great local dimming. So a lot of clipping. They're saying you're going to have 4,000 nits with purpose and the local dimming. And what we saw versus the QD OLED, it smoked it. So, and that was a QD OLED. And actually it looked more lifelike and the blacks were good enough. So it's really exciting. And I think when FOMO, we talked about this is what I love about this year. It's exciting that LEDs are back. But when you see what Chirag showed with Samsung Display, that future is bright too. And
all he did was software, some minor adjustments to their
4,000
ICs,
nits is next,
and
that'll be my video tomorrow. So I'm doing Samsung Display tomorrow. So, but I mean, when I saw, and I said this to FOMO, what I saw from Samsung Display that was naked, their actual technology beat everything I saw at the show, including micro LED. Yeah. So it just needs to be unleashed. The problem is the manufacturers add that special sauce, which hurts it. So
Lisa wants to know, Brian, FOMO, can you guys see each other? I see Brian the same way you see Brian on the live stream. Unfortunately, he's not here, but I will see him in a few months.
Oh, you think we're in a studio where I'm like, oh yeah, I see it. That's a great question, actually.
Oh, what will the S90C 77-inch upscaling be like versus my 55-inch C1? So you have a couple of issues. When you're comparing a 55-inch to a 77, your pixel pitch on the 55-inch is smaller, finer. Just by pixel pitch alone, if you're sitting, I don't know, like 6 feet away, 5 feet away, it's going to look sharper without talking about upscaling. If you're sitting that close, the 55-inch is going to look sharper. The 77-inch will look slightly softer just because of the pixel size. But if you're standing maybe 10 feet away from both TVs, the 77-inch will then look brighter just because it's farther away. Now, upscaling, I assume we're talking about motion or artifacts. I think the 77-inch S90C, more often than not, is fine. But with YouTube TV, not a great experience for a lot of people watching sports. Now, I haven't compared directly to the C1 because I know it's YouTube TV that's the issue, and then the Samsung does not make it better. But some TVs make it better, like the XR Clear, possibly. So it's hard to say. Now, in some content, the S90C might add a little bit of, I don't know, chromatic aberrations with certain streaming content. But if you don't notice it, then it's not a big deal. But going from a 55 to 77, and you're sitting close still, you might notice slight issues at a closer. Now, if it's a 55-inch S90C, that's more apples to apples. Yeah. So, it's hard. I'm conflating. We're conflating a few issues that may not have anything to do with the processing.
Well, and I mean, let's be realistic. I love the C1, but it's also a couple years older.
Yes.
So I think alone, the S90 being a newer TV, whether the processor is much better, it's a newer TV. So in theory, it'll be better. It'll be the same. But it's larger.
And the luminance, the S90C will have better color luminance, better peak specular highlights. I mean, you're improving something, and you're getting size, so you might get more immersion. Upscaling isn't so bad that I wouldn't get it. I mean, I still like the S95C. It has the same processor as the S90C, and I have it in 77-inch size. I would sit 6 feet away. I think it's fine. But again, if you're sensitive to certain things that may be unique to the content you're watching, maybe the 77-inch S90C may not be for you. So that one is definitely use case specific. And Getty is out. He's going to go and enjoy his 100-inch TV, I am sure. All right. Michael's asking, FOMO, should I get the Samsung Q990C, which is the soundbar, for $1,200, or the Sony? Oh, $1,200. Haven't you seen the deal? It's going for like $769 if you are an offer member. I'm hoping you're a AAA member or EDU or something like that, because they've been selling for $800 all month long, or under $800. or the Sony HT-A9 for $1,500 without the sub for now. Price to price, I choose the 990C with a sub and not have to worry about upgrading. When you add the HT-A9 with the sub, it ends up being close to $2,000. I can't justify the $800 difference. If it was the same price with the sub, it'd be more difficult. But even at $1,200, I'd take the 990C. So
Me too. I love the HCA9. I have it, but I'd much rather have something with no dropouts at all, and that helps, right?
yeah.
So I mean, I would definitely go that. I would.
Now we're at, let's see, about an hour 40 minutes, Brian. How long do we have you for? I just want to make sure we
Probably got
respect
to.
your
We can
busy
probably go
schedule.
right to 2. Well, I think we'll just cap it at 2 hours.
All right, so another 20 minutes. Yeah, come with your questions, my friends. You have some really good ones. Now, let's just pull it to the 2024 TV models. Brian, what 2024 TV model, unique feature that's unique to 2024 TVs that you are most excited to review and compare to 2023?
So we had a good question in here. Someone asked why we didn't show the 900D, and the answer is I did. So go on my channel, whoever it is, and film my 900. I did one specific, but that leads into what we're talking about. I think for the first time, really, 8K will be something we'll be able to show, and why? Because it's a feature we can enable and disable. So we'll be able to show, let's say, an S95C versus a 900D, and then enable that processing. And it's not going to be just on movies; it'll be on anything. It'll be able to be enabled, and it'll have a strength to it. So for me, that's probably the top FOMO. That is a totally new feature. Would be the 900D, and then the other one that we're all excited about, at least I am, is the G4 83-inch. Would be my biggest one. The main biggest one outside of that, well, then there's 3 then, right? So those are my top 2. And then Sony's prototype, if that comes this year, will be the actual king.
Yeah. And I think
not quiet at all, right? My friend. We have videos on it. Check us out.
Yep.
Go back to
Brian
videos.
Brian specifically has a video on it. Now, of course, that's what we saw at CES. When the TVs come, they're going to tune it a bit more. It may have other new or worse things that we didn't notice. So just hold on tight, Ephraim. Our goal is to have the 900D at our early comparison at Valectronics in about 2 months or so. 900D versus G4 versus the, what else? 900D, G4, and the Sony A95L. Just compare it to last year's King of TVs.
I put it in the description for you, Ephraim. Check it out. The whole video is 900D essentially.
Yes.
But I think it's going to be. I think those 3 are going to be the big don't buy because this is coming out, right, FOMO? So again, if you're looking at an X95, great TV as long as you're okay not having 4,000 nits. 900C, really cool TV as long as you're not going to miss. This processor is going to be the big thing. Everything they have is going into that processor. QLED, to me right now for Samsung, is either you need the matte finish or you're buying last year's. So that's where they're going to get stuck. And
11 feet to 14 feet away. 85-inch X93 or 77-inch OLED. That far away, I'd go with that 93, 85-inch. First of all, that's the X95K 85-inch from the year prior.
I love the TV.
It's a great TV. And at that, I mean, that distance, it's
too small.
The minutia of OLED is going to be lost, and it's not worth that premium because you're probably going to pay more for like the G4 or the G3 or the A95L. I mean, it's just
well, and we say, guys, it's not that makes the TV still a big TV, but the impact of it you'll be lost on you. You're like, damn, that doesn't feel that big because you just are too far away.
Yeah.
Because we were far away from 100-inch TVs and they felt small because we probably thought we were 10 feet away from them. We're probably 15, 20 feet away because we're in these massive rooms.
It wasn't until we got to TCL's booth where they have the actual measurement.
Back and forth, yeah.
And like, you know what? 7.5 feet feels perfect for 98-inch for me. And Michael wanted to know, hey, I connected Samsung many times and they won't give me the lower price than $1,200. So, first, go to my video. If you look at my video maybe 2 months ago, I put out, get Samsung secret deals, kind of walk you through that. But you have to be either a AAA member or a member of their offer. Either your employer is a member or part of the offer programs for EDU and all those things, right? So once you're validated for either one, including AAA, if you don't get the price, go ahead and go to chat and let them know, hey, I am this offer group, and here's my validation, and I missed your $800 deal last week, or I think it was like 756 or whatever. You check out my post. More often than not, they'll give it to you, but you have to be in one of those groups, AAA or one of the offer member groups. But go to my video, I kind of explained the walkthrough on that, on the Samsung's access Samsung's secret deals, and let me know if you can get it. But if you're not a member of those things, so AAA doesn't work. So this is, watch my video for sure. If you just go straight to the AAA link, that alone doesn't work. You have to then pretend to log in as an EDU, then suddenly, magically, they'll look at you as EDU, but because you're AAA, you'll still get the price. But that's what I do. I mean, it's stupid, but yeah. You have to click on...
I'm a teacher. I'm a AAA member. I'm a black belt.
And I got myself a Samsung phone.
I'm a gymnast. Gold medal. Barcelona.
Tell chat what you're dealing with, and more often than not, they will give you the deal. And try different chat reps, by the way. Try 5 different times of the day. Many of my viewers, the first time they tried didn't work. Second or third time, boom, they got it. But be persistent.
That is persistent. You can see which Terminator you get. Oh, T800, nice.
That was craziness. Now they have forced auto update. So Apple Jelly TV is saying that it's forcing the S95B to be even dimmer, right? I guess they're auto updating all their QD OLEDs.
Ooh.
I no longer have it. I can't tell you, but I do have the S95C, and who knows? They're probably going to force me to auto update that one as well. Hopefully. And I do all my auto updates, by the way. I don't recommend you guys do. My job is to do it so that if anything bad happens, I can tell you.
Well, yeah, and we said this with Samsung. I've had it happen. You can take it offline, but keep it plugged in. You better just unplug it, take it completely offline, because that thing will update. And I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, there's that option, don't auto update. Doesn't do anything. Just unplug it from the internet and use a Roku stick, whatever, to stream.
That's it. I mean, and then people say, "Oh, that's kind of a pain." I'm like, then don't complain when they. And I know you guys think they're bricking them. The reality is, if they're dimming them, there was probably an issue with them burning in. Yeah. They're probably doing it as they do it for a purpose, not to make. Because here's the thing: if they brick them, you're not going to buy another Samsung.
Yeah.
So it's S95B was a really rough road. It was a first generation. So a lot of you guys went down that roller coaster. They were very, very bright. Then they were not. Then they were good. And I think they probably try to autocorrect it.
Yep.
I wouldn't update it though. We have whole videos on it.
Yes, I would not update it either. If I was you. Yonko, I mean, I update it, but
you're so subtle. If I was you. But I'm not. I don't care about my TVs. They're going to mom's house anyway.
For me, updating is content, baby.
Yeah. If it blows up, baby, that's another video.
Please, brick the TV so I can shoot this, right?
What video did we shoot where we talked about? Was it when you were doing the S95C?
It was the QN95B. Where it's just the local dimming died on me after the update. I go, you guys see that? Look at that.
No. It was the QN95C. You're like, I was trying to update it and it's just not updating. And someone was saying someone at Samsung had the switch. Oh, is he updating it? Yeah. No, turn it off. Like all of a sudden it just said update wasn't available. He's like, I just saw. Okay.
Samsung playing tricks on us.
Yeah, they're watching
Yonko, thank you for that super chat. I know. And by the way, they love us despite what we say. That's just something for you guys to know.
They love you. They don't love me yet.
You'll get there. Do you see the new Sony Mini LED sauce competing with an old like C9, C10?
I see it absolutely destroying it.
So an old OLED, I mean, in a dark room watching Friends will have better contrast, but. So here, that's a loaded question, because the C9 and the CX were very different. CX was nowhere near as vibrant as the C9. The C9 had a very, especially the C8 had a very almost, the C8 especially had a Samsung look to it. It was very cartoony. It was very vibrant. CX was very dark and more accurate and had a lot of issues.
you're talking about a Sony mini LED that'll be 4,000 nits with superior local dimming and XR clear. It will not be close. It will decimate it. I mean, now will it decimate an A95L? I watched it decimate an S95C. So if it beats an S95C, I'm sorry, a C9 or CX aren't even in the conversation. So I can say that emphatically. I saw it beat the hell out of a S95C. So I'm
content. It's content specific.
It's content specific, but I mean, it's also
and
why we,
yeah.
but also why we say going to CES is worth it, because being able to speak with specificity on it is because we were there and we saw it. So I would say, without hesitation, it'll blow it up.
And to your point, this is a great follow-up to the C10. Would you buy a C10 with 10,000 hours for $750?
No.
If they gave it to you, I'd take it. And you should tell them, look, I'll take it off your hands.
Yeah, but you can buy 85-inch TVs now for $700. I would never. I mean, especially a CX, no TV that many. 10,000 hours. None of my TVs have that.
So the good question, Samsung, is the S95, thank you, to be nice. Is the S90D, S95D processor different than the S90C? So S95D, S90D, they didn't even talk about that processor. The focus the whole time was on the 8K next generation neural network. I suspect it's the same, and I'll tell you why. Because at our innovation room, the focus was on, look, everything looks great enough. Now, if you had 8K, we can make it look even more special. Yeah. But 4K TVs, it looks perfect. That's their position. They feel that for most of you, 99%, good enough. The 1% that's looking for XR clear, all these great things, that's the 1% they will never win over. But the 99%, oh, wow, this looks amazing. They're already there. They think they're there. There will be very little improvement unless they trickle down that new AI neural network to the 4K TV in a year or two. But this year, like last year, like the year before, I think Samsung's convinced they're already there. And I agree with them. For most of you, I think that's fine. But for those who are a bit more, well, Brian, do you think Samsung is there? I think Sony is farther ahead, but I noticed these things. I don't know if you did.
Well, you said it best earlier today. The reason why we know it's not a new processor is that they're very good at telling us what they do well. If they had a new processor, they would have said something. They'd have been like, hey, here it is. I mean, literally the QLED 4K was, it's over here with some breakdancing on it.
I remember you asked one of them, hey, what about the 4K Neo QLED? And he's like, look at those lights and speakers you got over there.
He's and like, hey, we got some great frames over here. I was like, hey, look at me over here. Hey, you. It was like they were standing in front of them. And I think, I think that we said this a couple of years ago with the S95B. And I think if you're really in Samsung Electronics, FOMO, we talked about this. If I'm the project manager who's been pushing 8K and this S95B lands, you're like, what the heck? They don't want those TVs to really do well. The markups are not there. They're so cheap. They lose money on them. They lose a fortune on them. QD OLED and we all think that they're selling like hotcakes. They are and they aren't. It's the QLEDs that they really want to push. And they are this year, and I think they're standing their ground. If they offer, as they did FOMO last year, with the QN85C and the QN85B, hey, it's got the 8K processor. It didn't really show up in the content. This is far different. This is a whole nother chipset, and they had a whole booth of this chip. So go watch my video and check it out. I mean, that's all they talked about. So I can't say them saying, well, yeah, we also threw it over here on this thing.
Yeah. They're
not going to do that. They want to separate it. I think it's a bad move because 8K is turning them off. I'd rather you see, as you said, FOMO, go with like an ultra. So I think if Sony does it right, they're saying, hey, our ultra 4K is the one. I think 8K is still going to leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth because there isn't any 8K content. And Samsung's trying to say, well, hey, our processing is going to give it to you. I think a lot of picture purists, even like Classy, who's in the, I'd love to hear what Classy thinks about it. If you're going to add that much processing, a purist isn't going to like that.
But what are we talking about? The 1%? They're 0.5%? And purists don't like paying too much money either. I hate to say it. Purists are cheap.
How's that going to do in the shootout when they're like, oh, by the way, that lady, it's 100 years old, now looks like she's 30.
I'll tell you, these judges at the shootout, Brian, and I love you all judges, but they all have these older TVs, and they
Oh
would
my God, it's always
never
funny.
buy any of these TVs. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just so expensive, and they're
Well,
like, you know,
so remember when Kenny? So the funny, some of
yes,
these
I
guys
love Kenny.
own their own studio, like their own companies. And I think Jason had like a C8. Jason Dustle had like an older TV. Phil Holland's cameras are like 19K. I'm like, what are you watching? I got a C9, I think. I'm like, what are you talking about? So Kenny is like, yeah, I finally got around to getting a QD OLED. We're like, oh, which one did you get? He goes, S95B. I'm like, you got the old one. You're in the industry.
Yep. And that's the thing. Samsung knows their audience, right? That's the matte screen. 2024 matte screen. Their audience is that 1%, which does not include creators. I mean, Hollywood producers are buying the Sony Crystal for $1 million. So, you know,
well, and
honestly,
look at
they know
the
their market.
that filmmaker that we had that built the camera from Avatar. He's using a 900C. And we're like, really? Like, that's what I mean, because we saw the 900C get spanked by these S95C. But then again, you know, we look at these things very different. And honestly, FOMO, you and I both being content creators, we talk about this a lot off camera. I'm sure Classy could say this as well. We really don't get a chance to do that much or watch that much content. PC gaming, this and that. So I can see how these guys that actually film this content are like, dude, I don't even watch TV.
Right.
So they're probably fine with that.
I wanted to address this real quick. LGM, good question. Is the TCL 65-inch QMA for $900? Is that a good price? Is there a better TV at that price? Right now, for what you're wanting, no, U8K comes close. I prefer the QM8 if you're including gaming. I like the U8K if it's only content. But if you wait, the TCL QM8 for 2024 will be similarly priced and probably better in terms of its gaming, the fine-tuning of the gaming. All right, Jared, thank you for the super chat. FOMO, will you ever do any more local home theater tour videos, or are you now more focused on TVs and less audio?
Ooh, he's done.
I think I've said this many times. I think we're at a point where audio, it'll end up being the same thing, which is get a really good Denon, 5.1.2, you're done. I mean, that will get you 99% there without having to overspend. Get RSL speakers or SVS speakers, save money. I mean, having heard the best and then going down, it's all subwoofer. I mean, if you really want more, pressurize your room, get more SVS subwoofers and fill it with a bunch of 16-inch subwoofers and you're there. So, I mean, for me, it's just, it's hard to get people excited about stuff that's super expensive, but it ends up being very similar to what they can get or get close to that.
Well, and I mean, honestly, I'm not speaking for FOMO here, but there's so many channels that are doing these home theater walkthroughs. We even saw M-Wave, which is, Michael Youth Man.
That's a real walkthrough. I mean, that's what they do.
They do some serious walkthroughs, but for me, they're just not practical enough even for me to build one. I mean, the fact is, and I'll say this with M-Wave, it was so interesting. We had SVS, no amp. They just had a powerful receiver, their speakers. It sounded phenomenal. And here I am with speakers 3 times the size. I still have to buy different amps to run them. And at a certain point, you're just like, okay, it's just more and more money. How much are your amps? Oh no, they're $2,000 each. The speakers are $7,000 each. The subs, it just gets to be where the guy next to me with a sound bar is at least listening to content. And I know FOMO for like a year, all your stuff was unplugged, waiting for, and then now we're all running, and then we're running Oro 3D because Atmos isn't there; it's weak.
Yeah, the Oromatic upmixing. Yep.
So I have Oro 3D on my PC just because I don't know. It becomes endless, and for us, and I'll speak for myself, I can easily do speaker reviews from Robert and this and that. The interest is just very hard because a lot of guys will look at speakers, but they don't buy them. And it's just people get into fights, and it's a totally different community than we have here. You guys are both audio and visual. When you get pure audio, it's a whole nother level of redundancy, and it's just the communities are very different.
And TVs, I honestly, because it's easy for me to make objective to a certain degree. I can capture the differences, right?
Yeah.
In audio, it's impossible to capture the differences. You have to listen to my subjective impression. Ooh. But then when I went to M-Wave, and this is why I recommend everyone try M-Wave.
That was great.
They did back to back to back of Maverick, Top Gun, right? We took a
That was
7 second,
processors,
right?
and those were the
Yeah,
processors. Yeah,
5 seconds of the most active movement with dialogue, and one after the other. The Anthem arc, the Denon, the Marantz, the Storm, I think there was like one more, right? And then after a while, you're like, okay, I sense slight differences,
very.
but this was their default, room curve. But then at the end, the guy who was hosting, he's like, but honestly, I can make it all sound the same. And I'm
Yeah,
like, you know what? I mean, at the end, you could tune it to your taste. What's the point?
yeah. And that was so crushing too, FOMO, because the price point of them were thousands and thousands apart. But also, I know you have too, FOMO. We've read reviews of all of those products, and they're very. This one's bright. This one's more open. This one's more deep. And you're like, honestly, the fact that they're, you can spend 50 grand on something and have it sound the same as something that's 5 grand. And then we did also that Lazy Susan with SVS that beat out these
Yeah.
speakers. And that one, those did sound different, but it's just, and it's also, I mean, I've listened to where someone says, hey, well, that guy also said, hey, that's reference. And you and I were like, reference? You have these massive subs. There was no bass. So my reference is like explosions everywhere, bass. I had the SVS Tube 4000. I want things to
People
shake.
raise the sub. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And then these guys had, no, this is reference. I'm like, reference for, it's just very hard. We're TV. And also, here's the thing too, FOMO. You can have speakers from 20 years ago still be okay for now. You can have very rich, older 2-channel that still beats now. TV from 20 years ago is not even in the conversation. 5 years ago, it's not in the conversation. So the best plasma, as much as we love plasma and Z9Ds, they really are not in the same category anymore. So with the tangible differences, audio is just very hard. You might have a receiver from 10 years ago that is just more powerful than what's there now, which is actually almost a certainty.
I think this is a great comment by Diggerless that I want to address because we haven't addressed filmmakers' intent. Stop FOMO, Brian. No mention in the stream at all of filmmaker mode or creator's intent. All you talk about is giant screen size and nit increases. Where does it end? So this is a great comment because in my video about sitting closer, getting a larger viewing angle, right? So larger screen size, but what really it means is to get a larger viewing angle because certain content assumes you're sitting closer, larger viewing angle, bigger screens. Yeah. So they're shooting at a wider angle where the people in the shot are so far away. Now, if you're sitting close, you actually feel them emote, right? That's what Phil Holland said. But if you're sitting 12 feet away from a 75-inch TV, suddenly the creator's intent is lost. You're too far away from that scene. They want you to sit closer to that scene. Or IMAX shot where you're intended to sit closer for those slow panning visuals. So size is consistent with creator's intent. Now, we all think of creator's intent as purely color accuracy or maybe luminance accuracy. Now it also includes viewing angle accuracy. If it's an IMAX product, it was shot with the expectation you'll be in IMAX theater, which is a 60 to 80 degree viewing angle, folks. That means you're 7.5 feet away from a 100-inch TV, right? So if you're watching Dune, you're probably too far away. Now, let's go to the nit increases. Nit increases to the degree that's consistent with creator's intent. So 4,000 nit mastering monitor. I'm not saying watch 4,000 nits for the sake of 4,000 nits. We're talking brighter TVs, 5,000, 10,000 nit, 4,000 nit, because once Sony's monitors make their way through all the studios, and it was at the request of the Hollywood studios to Sony that, hey, Sony, your monitors at 1,000 nit, not bright enough. We need 4,000 peak specular highlights so we can grade it in one pass. We do not have the budget to go multiple passes to get that high specular highlights. Give us a 4,000 nit so we can save money and do it properly. So that's there. Now, it's not this year, next year, but we're talking about future content. So to your point, Diggerless, yes, today, 4,000 nit TVs, probably pointless. A handful might even need that. But 3 years from now, it's going to be a thing. So we're not even focused on the brightest TVs. Now, I do like bright OLEDs for certain things because they kind of dim over time. But for real content, I think we're, like I said last year, we're there. I'm fine with QD OLED brightness for film. But future film, it's going to need to get brighter. But yeah, good point, Douglas. It is a conversation, but but for the 1%. The 1% enthusiasts.
Yeah, and that's why the 4,000 nit conversation was nits with purpose. They only made that because they also made a reference monitor at the same time. The reference monitor wasn't made 4 years ago. It's out now. The TV is going to be basically the version of it. So they're actually creating the need. And the need is actually created because the creators wanted it, right? So Phil Holland, these guys, I think we were under the impression, FOMO, that HDR was an annoyance to a lot of these studios. Like, really, you have to do this? These creators want to be able to make their stuff more impactful. But remember also, studio intent and creator intent is grain structure. Dune is not a clean film. So those look amazing on a projector or something filmic, but remember, grain structure, no advanced contrast enhancer, those things are not part of it. So, you have to be careful with the creator's intent. It might not look good in your house. That's what we're saying.
Yes, agreed. A real TV question that we can address. What up, Brian and FOMO? I am in the market for new TV, Xbox, gaming, and YouTube. I love that because it's easy to suggest a TV. I'm torn between 85-inch Hisense UX or the 85-inch Sony X95L. Because the UX is going to come out this year for 2024, all new version, don't get the 85-inch version from last year.
No, it's a prototype.
Wait for the new one. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the X95L from Sony, well-baked. It's proven. Everyone loves it. Some here have commented that some have commented here that they like gaming on the X95L. So I think for gaming on Xbox, it's fine. Now, if you want a bit more of the features activated, you might have to get an OLED because it looks best. But for what you do, YouTube X95L with XR Clear, you're going to love it. I say get the X95L. Right.
Yeah,
and you saw both as well, Brian. What do you think?
Well, the 85-inch UX doesn't have any extra gaming features to it. It doesn't have 144. Not that I didn't find the U8K to really work well with 144. I still can't get it to work with NVIDIA card. You wouldn't use that anyway because you're using an Xbox. Sony's a safer, easier bet. UX I thought was more impactful in some ways, but the upscaling is not going to be there. So I would say X95.
Yeah. And, we're going to wrap it up. I just wanted to bring up this comment that Lisa shared.
Hi, Lisa.
She has a dedicated audio listening space in her living room, and she loves it, but she doesn't share what she has because the audiophile community, for fear that it's too low end. Basically, they shame her, possibly, for not having, or either choosing the wrong speaker or just whatever. Hey, you're not sitting far enough, whatever. And it is definitely a very nuanced group, whether it's driven by data. Hey, you should have watched ASR and this one's terrible speaker, terrible dispersion. Or if it's not Magico or Wilson, it's crap, right? I mean, you have these two extremes where one overspends because of the reputation, and the other one is all about numbers and measurements. And at some point, people will just buy because they like the wood carving on top of it, right? I mean, there's so many reasons for that journey. And you're right, it's so tough.
So Lisa, I'll tell you this. Love Lisa. Lisa goes to a lot of channels. But Lisa, the community you have between this channel, my channel, and FOMO's channel is very unique. It's very loving. We don't remove any comments. None of us are removing any comments. I know you guys, some moderators might. We don't. That is very rare in the technology space, period. And it's extremely rare in audio-visual space. So when you wander into those other channels, I'm not saying you should share because you might get hammered in there. I mean, because it is a tough group. I don't go into AVS forums for that reason. It's not.
I love my Bose speakers, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get, so I can't even tell you like, hey, don't be afraid. I'm saying be very afraid. Those guys, I mean, in FOMO, you love this. So these guys walked in, here we are at M-Wave, and these guys would come in and talk about their systems, right? So FOMO and I would sit there and thoughtfully listen. Yeah, I got a blah, 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 blah. What size TV you have? Oh, I got a 55-inch. Really? You look at some of those pictures, they have a center channel that's like 5 feet from the TV. The TV's way in the back. And it's all about building this massive thing. So It's so interesting. Don't share what you have. I'm not telling you should, because I'm telling you, I can only vouch for this community, mine and FOMO's and Classy's. We all share the same communities, but that's it. I cannot vouch for another technology community. Do not share it. PC communities, oh my God. You're like, hey,
Tribalism, the tribalism.
yeah, everyone's like, what do you think
yeah.
about AVS forums? I'm like, I do not read that. I'm not reading about myself in there. You're in your mind. No way. It's a jungle. No
It is a
thanks.
jungle.
So, Lisa, if you wander, I mean, you can get some love, but I would not share what you have. What's up, Classy? Still here?
Yeah.
Love you too, honey. But don't share what you have in audio. Please trust me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
People are so judgy. Yeah.
Well, like, yeah, BMWs, which ones you got? Oh, I have an amp. Well, which ones you got? You're like, they're BMWs. Yeah, but which ones? Is it the D, blah, 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 blah? And, you know, like PC gaming, at least you can say I have a 4090 and everybody shuts up. But incrementally with speakers, it's endless. Oh, I got custom built, blah, 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 blah. Oh, it gets, you know.
I don't even want to dive into that. Yeah.
Hey, meantime, the guy next to you has got a Vizio soundbar from Costco for $50 and he's happy as hell. And I'm behind there by wiring speakers. Right now for my Polk Legends, I have so many different attachments that I bought to sync. I don't even have the energy to do it. Meantime, some guy with a $900 Samsung soundbar is happy as hell. He's just enjoying it. I'm on a tangent. I'm on fire.
And so to your point, I have to say, you guys see me recommend the Samsung QN90C
every day.
And you don't realize what I have, right? I mean, not a lot of you know, a lot of you might not know. So I have this Trinoff system that's like 70 grand or whatever, right? All Genelec, all active speakers. I mean, we're talking like amazing studio level, 11.4 point. I mean, I have JTR subwoofers. And at the end, I'm like, okay, it hurts my soul that I really like the Samsung Q990C. I'm going to stop reviewing audio because it makes no sense that I have all these overheads and everything. And at the end of the day, it's just easier to listen to the Samsung Q990C. And so now it's my chosen soundbar.
Well, and what we haven't talked about this, and we saw this at M-Wave too. Every single high-end home theater, there's performance anxiety. What I mean by that is we'll sit there, you'll fire up a movie, and without fail, someone goes, "Oh, hold on a minute," and something doesn't work. We saw that happen with with every system we saw. When typically people are like, "Oh, I'll just turn this on and it works." A lot of the stuff is just so finicky, it barely ever works. And there's always the tinkering. I swear right now, if we sat down with FOMO and we hung out, he'd be like, "Oh, hold on a minute. We have to make sure that this is on and that is on and this works." Every high-end theater I've been in, it really is not a quick thing. It's a long thing. So, that's all I'm saying on that.
And this is a great question, Alden. Do y'all know when the optimal time to get a 2023 Sony TVs are? I always hear after the Super Bowl, but no, okay, so let me tell you, Alden, you get it before they run out of stock. Because which is for the 85-inch size, it's right now. It depends which model, but let's say the X95L. That is a very popular speaker. The minute that price starts to drop, it will not make it to Prime Day. It will probably sell out before Prime Day, like the X95K before it, and Samsung as well. So the best price is not necessarily the best time because you want to buy it while it's still available. It's pointless to wait until Prime Day. Now, technically, Prime Day is the lowest price for last year's TVs if it's still available. Yeah. So if the Sony TV you're looking at is still available on Prime Day, of course, that'll be the best price. But if it's a popular size model, X95L, and maybe the X90L at the 85-inch size, and look, the 100-inch or 98-inch X90L sold out. I don't know if they're going to fill it up anymore. So if you're waiting for the 90-inch to drop in price, can't even get it right now.
No,
so it really depends on the model and the 77-inch A95L. Those of you waiting for it to drop, not available.
No.
Now, maybe a new model's coming out, right? Who knows, right? So that's just something to keep in mind.
Well, and Alden, here's the thing too, and this is why it's not worth the risk. It's one thing in the middle of the year if the price doesn't go down and you're stuck paying a higher price. When it's gone, it's gone. So it's very different. You see what I'm saying? If you miss a low price FOMO, damn, I got to pay $300 more. But if the TV's gone,
it's gone.
Or like the S90C, there were people trying to, and that it breaks my heart because the S90C is a 1 in a million. People circled around that TV for months, FOMO, and then said, I'm going to get it right now. And it's gone. Like it may never exist again in the world. So I think right now, Alden, if it's within a few $100s, it might drop. Think about enjoying that TV for the next few months is worth a few $100s. So I would purchase it now. What's up, Christian?
And thank you for the super chat, Christian. Large screen TVs have destroyed USTs. Yes, 100-inch, 110-inch, 115-inch. I was planning to buy one until last year, but with all these affordable 100-inch TVs, I don't see the point. And that's the key. It's affordable. Now, Christian, assuming you can put it on your wall, you don't plan to move it room to room, but once it's up there and you don't plan to leave, I think it's great. And the price is compelling. And with Geek Squad, so we're going to talk about Best Buy. If you buy from Best Buy and you're a member of their Total Tech, anything that goes wrong with it, they'll just replace it, right? Yeah. Within a certain number, within the Best Buy coverage period, which is if you're a Total Tech member, premium member, whatever, 2 years. During that 2 years, anything goes wrong, they'll just replace it. They'll come in, they'll take it out, give you a new one. Done. Yep. So I love that. I mean, for a 65-inch, okay, whatever. I don't need that extra service, but 100-inch, suddenly, I think this whole Total Tech thing, definitely necessary. I mean, it's an extra $200 maybe a year. So add that to your budget if you want that total support. But for the price of what you're getting, I think it's worth that support.
Well, and for Christian too, before you go on to Chris, we talked about putting together a home theater. That's where UST's projectors are the same thing. Because you're like, okay, because I've had this conversation with FOMO, the projector costs this, but which screen do you want? And is that screen going to be light hitting, and now that screen is $5,000 or $6,000, and now you're into another $3,000, and then your contrast ratio is still not as good as a TCL. It just becomes very hard. And then they do burnout, and it's just all these different things. And let's face it, there's no real HDR. So then you're missing out on that, and that's where that I think is a hard sell. But for a while there, the immersion was great. TVs were only 75 inches now. It's just a very hard thing with real HDR. Let's just face it, which is now more important than ever with these 4,000 nits TVs. What's up, Chris?
He has such a great question, and this will be our last question, super chat. We're going to wrap it up. Thank you, guys. Chris, we have to end with you because this is one that I'm struggling with. I have a A9G 65-inch, great OLED TV. That's what I had when I started my channel. And it was the Master Series for a few years.
First Master Series, yep.
I want a more immersive experience without sacrificing quality, mostly movie watching from 16 feet away.
Wow,
so you might have to look at, okay, so first of all, the A9G.
Projector.
What do you think of Sony's, maybe if Sony comes out with a 98-inch? I mean, you didn't say budget, right, Chris? You didn't say budget. I say wait for Sony's 2024 98-inch TVs to come out. The problem is quality on an OLED means infinite contrast. The largest OLED that's going to be similar to the A9G is probably the 83-inch A90J. Might save some money with that. Or G4, 83-inch, but it's going to be pretty expensive. 83-inch is so small from 16 feet away. I'm struggling here. I mean, I can't tell you to go 110-inch because I don't think you'll probably notice the difference going from OLED to a mini LED. Maybe wait for Sony's mini LED to come out and see what they charge for a 98-inch. I mean, it's not going to be cheap. So without knowing your budget,
the safe bet right now is the A80L at 83 inches because you're coming from a 65-inch. The A9G was excellent, but it was one of the dimmest OLEDs out there. It was very filmic. I would go with an 83. If you want something now, go with an 83-inch OLED. You'll be happy because, yes, you're still far away, but that's a massive size difference. I think you'll be okay. That immersion. My point is, FOMO, we always said that immersion is far for you and I, but if you're coming from a very small TV, that jump is big enough. I hate to see you go 85 or 100 to a inferior LED. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate the blooming is going to make you insane. The contrast ratio, you're going to feel it because the A9G was very, again, was dim but beautiful. You'll see a brighter LED and the local dimming's going to kill you. You're going to be like, what the heck's going on? And so I think I would stay with an 83-inch OLED. Pick whatever one you want, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. And Ephraim says I have 150,000 subscribers now. I'm so close. I'm at 149,950 right now. And I've been just hanging around 149 forever. So hopefully by the end of the month, I'll hit 150. But it's not about subscribers. It's about you guys, right? So eventually.
Take you out for a steak, baby. Where's Scott Coakley?
Yeah. Chicken nuggets.
Scott, give me that $500, baby. You gotta do that. Yeah, dude, it's amazing. You get that is the
I
best
love
comment.
this.
You
It's the
do,
best.
you are. I have
You
never
are.
watched it. It's right there. I
All
love it,
right,
man. I
guys.
love the TV. It's great.
I
So,
love
guys,
watching your TV.
I never say this, but check out my channel.
Yes.
Check out Brian's Tech Therapy. I have a lot of videos on there now. We've had a great, and FOMO and I teaming up. We're having a great year together. And the TV season hasn't really kind of started as far as new TVs yet. We have a lot of great stuff coming. So we love you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in with us, and keep watching my TV back there.
And I don't think they know what it looks like, because we're gonna have to share what your channel looks like, just in case people don't know. That's
Yeah, I mean, I'm on here so much.
put
I
out
think you
your
guys think that I'm
channel.
just on here.
I know, right? So there he is. And, oh, I'm on there too. Look at that. This is Brian's channel. Look at him looking so handsome in his
Especially the new
Bronco.
one, that Matt video. Come on, guys. That video is all about you guys.
And Spears and Munsell made his TV better. All right. And with that, thank you, everyone. Thank you. And we will be back at the next live stream. Brian, what are you going to do this week? What are you putting out?
So I was going to put out the Samsung display video tomorrow, but I hung out with you for a while. So that'll actually go up the day after tomorrow. So I have a short up right now. And, I'm looking at a Z9K 900C comparison maybe. It's a weird time right now because I think you and I have so many good discussion videos to make. More so than things to show, if that makes sense. Because every conversation him and I have is a good video. When we'll be doing those on my channel, these more tech therapy video, I want to do one versus we do want to do one called Shills. That'll be up soon.
Oh, that's a good one. We're going to accuse each other of being a shill, and we're not wrong.
Yeah, not wrong. Got that. Thank you, Bob, Iceman and Bob. So
I love Michelle's comment. Great stream. Haven't listened in a while. And then, of course, right before that, let me unsub.
Yeah, Michelle comes and goes.
Michelle. I love it.
Michelle loves you. And it's like, I'm out. So we have a lot of good stuff coming up, and it's all good. But love you guys. And again, thank you for being, amazing. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you all. See you next.
Bye, guys.
Till then, stop the FOMO.